My sister told my daughter to help the servants clean up. I want you to understand something. I am not a violent person. I have never raised my hand to anyone. I have spent 34 years of my life keeping quiet, keeping the peace, keeping everyone else comfortable. But when Alexandra said those words to my 7-year-old daughter, something inside me shifted. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time finally woke up. Let me start from the beginning. The real beginning. It was a Saturday afternoon in late September. The kind of day that looks beautiful from a distance. Golden leaves, clear sky, the smell of autumn in the air. The kind of day that should be perfect. Sophie had been excited all week. Her cousin Emma was turning 10, and Aunt Lexi was throwing what she called the party of the year. My daughter had picked out her dress herself, purple with little silver stars. She had twirled in front of the mirror that morning, her brown eyes shining. "Do I look pretty, Mama?" I knelt down and fixed her collar, catching a glimpse of myself in the mirror behind her. The sleeveless blouse I wore showed the small birthmark on my shoulder, a crescent-shaped mark I had inherited from my father. Or so I had always believed. "You look beautiful, sweetheart, the prettiest girl at the party." She beamed at me. God, that smile, it could light up a room. I wish I had kept her home. The drive to my sister's house took 45 minutes. 45 minutes of Sophie chattering about cake and games and maybe finally getting to play with her cousins. 45 minutes of me gripping the steering wheel and trying to breathe. I should explain something about my sister's house. It is not a house. It is a statement. 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a 3-car garage, and a backyard that could fit my entire apartment twice over. The kind of place that whispers, no screams. We made it. We are better than you. I found myself cataloging everything automatically the way I did with debt portfolios at work. The property taxes alone on a house like this, 20, maybe $25,000 a year. The maintenance. The landscaping crew that came twice a week. The pool service. The cleaning staff. I knew exactly what it cost to maintain a lifestyle like this. I also knew exactly how much Lexi and Derek actually had. The numbers did not match. Alexandra, Lexi as she insists everyone call her, 4 years older than me. 4 years more loved. 4 years more everything. Growing up, she was the golden child. The beautiful one. The smart one. The one our mother actually wanted. And me, I was just there. The accident. The afterthought. The one who could never quite measure up. "Mama, look." Sophie pressed her face against the window. "Aunt Lexi's house is so big." I pulled into the driveway, parking behind a row of luxury cars that cost more than I make in a year. A BMW, a Mercedes, a Porsche SUV. I noted the models, estimated the payments. Professional habit. "It sure is, baby." I sat there for a moment, just sat there. Part of me wanted to turn around, to make up some excuse, to protect my daughter from what I knew was coming. But Sophie was already unbuckling her seatbelt, bouncing with excitement. And I thought, maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time they would see her, really see her. I was wrong. The front door opened before we reached it. My mother stood in the entryway dressed in cream-colored silk, her silver hair perfectly styled. Margaret Lawson. 72 years old and still looking at me like I was a stain on her favorite carpet. "Victoria." She said my name like it was a diagnosis. "You are late." I checked my watch. We were 7 minutes early. "Traffic," I said. There had been no traffic. Her eyes moved past me to Sophie. And here is the thing that still gets me even now. Even after everything. When my mother looked at my daughter, her expression did not change. Not a flicker of warmth. Not a hint of recognition. She looked at Sophie the same way she would look at a stranger's child, or a piece of furniture. "Sophie, say hello to Grandma," I prompted. "Hi, Grandma." Sophie waved, still clutching her little gift bag. "I brought a present for Emma." My mother nodded once. Her eyes were already moving past Sophie, scanning the yard for someone more important. "Everyone is in the back. Try not to make a mess." She turned and walked away. Did not offer a hug. Did not comment on Sophie's dress, the purple dress with silver stars that my daughter had been so proud of. Did not even fully look at her granddaughter. Sophie's smile faltered. Just for a second. Then she looked up at me and I saw her forcing it back into place. 7 years old and she already knew. She already knew that she had to pretend. That she was not wanted here. I squeezed her hand. "Come on, sweetheart. Let us go find the party." The backyard was exactly what you would expect. White tents with fairy lights. A professional DJ playing pop music. A bounce house that probably cost more than my rent. Waiters in black vests carrying trays of champagne and fancy appetizers that children would never eat. I did the math automatically. The catering alone, maybe $20,000. The DJ, the decorations, the bounce house, the custom cake I could see on a table near the back. All together. This party cost more than some people make in 6 months. For a 10-year-old's birthday. And in the center of it all, my sister. Lexi was holding court by the dessert table, surrounded by a group of women who looked like they had walked out of a magazine. Designer dresses, perfect hair, the kind of casual cruelty that only comes with money. She spotted me immediately. Of course she did. Victoria. She glided over, arms outstretched, camera-ready smile in place. You made it? The hug was brief, performative. Her perfume was suffocating, something expensive that smelled like gardenias and judgment. Lexi, I managed a smile. The party looks amazing. Does it not? She stepped back, gesturing at the spectacle around us. Derek wanted to go simple, but I said Emma only turns 10 once. You have to do it right. Derek. Her husband. I caught a glimpse of him across the yard, standing alone by the bar, scrolling through his phone. He looked tired. The kind of tired that sleep does not fix. The kind of tired that comes from carrying secrets. I filed that away. Derek looking tired. Derek standing apart. Derek checking his phone with the nervous energy of a man waiting for bad news. Something to think about later. And little Sophie. Lexi looked down at my daughter like she was examining something mildly distasteful. What a colorful dress. Sophie's hand tightened in mine. I picked it myself. Did you how creative? The word creative dripped with condescension. Sophie did not catch it. I did. Where is Emma? I asked, changing the subject. Sophie has been so excited to see her. Oh, she is around somewhere, with her real friends. Lexi waved vaguely toward a cluster of children near the bounce house. I am sure Sophie can find something to do. Maybe she can help the kids with the craft station. She said it like she was doing us a favor, like my daughter should be grateful for scraps. Thanks, I said, my jaw tight. We will manage. Lexi patted my arm. I am sure you will. You always do. She leaned closer, dropping her voice to a conspiratorial whisper that was meant to wound. By the way, love what you did with your hair. Very low maintenance. Then she was gone, floating back to her real friends, leaving me standing there with my fists clenched and my face burning. Sophie tugged my hand. Mama, can we get some cake? I looked down at her hopeful eyes, at the purple dress she had been so proud of. Yeah, baby, let us get some cake. The next 2 hours were exactly what I expected. Sophie tried to play with the other kids. They ignored her. She tried to join in on the games. They told her the teams were full. She sat by herself at the craft station making a friendship bracelet that no one would ever wear. I watched her from across the yard. I watched her keep smiling, keep trying, keep hoping that anyone would see her. No one did. And my mother. She spent the entire party doting on Emma, holding Emma's hand, bragging to the other guests about Emma's grades, Emma's ballet recital, Emma's perfect life. She did not look at Sophie once. Not once. I found myself in this kitchen at some point, refilling my water glass, trying to escape the noise and the forced smiles. That is when I heard them. Lexi and 2 of her friends just around the corner, voices carrying in that careless way of people who assume no one important is listening. I do not know why Victoria even comes to these things. That was Lexi. I would recognize that patronizing tone anywhere. She knows she does not fit in. Is she still doing that? What is it, accounting? Lexi laughed. Something like that. Some boring numbers job. I honestly stopped asking. It is just sad, you know. We had the same parents, the same opportunities. And look at her. Some people are just less. It is not their fault. Exactly, that is what I keep telling Mother. Victoria is not a bad person. She is just limited. I stood there, frozen, water glass in hand. Limited. Boring numbers job. My boring little numbers job. Senior portfolio manager at one of the largest distressed debt firms in the Northeast. 11 years of climbing, learning, mastering the art of finding weakness in financial empires. She had no idea what I actually did. No idea that every day I watched families like hers collapse on spreadsheets. That I had learned to spot the cracks in perfect facades, to trace the hidden debts and secret failures that brought down people who thought they were untouchable. She had no idea that I had already found her cracks. That I had been studying them for 2 years. That I knew exactly how fragile her perfect life really was. Limited. I almost laughed. But she was about to find out just how unlimited I could be. I went back outside. Found Sophie sitting alone on a bench, her friendship bracelet half finished in her lap. She was not crying. That almost made it worse. "Hey, sweetheart." I sat down next to her. "How are you doing?" She shrugged. The kind of shrug that means everything is wrong, but I do not want to talk about it. "The other kids." "I know, baby, I know." We sat there together, watching the party continue without us. Watching Emma open presents, surrounded by adoring relatives. Watching my mother clap and cheer for someone else's child. I thought about all the birthdays I had spent like this, on the outside, looking in at a family that had never wanted me, wondering what I had done wrong, why I was not enough. And now my daughter was learning the same lesson. That is when Lexi appeared. She had been drinking. I could tell by the flush in her cheeks, the slight looseness in her movements. She walked toward us with that smile I had seen 1,000 times. The one that meant something terrible was coming. "Sophie." She crouched down to my daughter's level, her voice sugary sweet. "Are you having fun?" Sophie nodded, even though we both knew she was lying. "You know what?" Lexi tilted her head, studying Sophie like she was a problem to be solved. "I bet you could be really useful right now. The servants are cleaning up the kitchen and they could use some help." She paused, letting the words sink in. "You seem more suited for that kind of thing." The words hung in the air. More suited. For serving, for cleaning, for being invisible. Sophie looked at me confused. "Mama." I could not speak. For a moment I could not breathe. Behind Lexi I saw some of the other mothers watching, waiting to see what I would do. Their faces showed the particular hunger of people hoping for drama at someone else's expense. My own mother was there too, standing near the dessert table. And she said nothing. Just looked away as if she had not heard. As if her granddaughter had not just been humiliated in front of everyone. Like she always did. Like I always let her. Something inside me cracked. Something that had been bending for 30 years finally snapped. I stood up slowly, very slowly. "Sophie, honey," I said, my voice calm, so calm. "Go wait by the door. We are leaving." "But Mama..." "Now, sweetheart." She scrambled off the bench and ran toward the house. Smart girl. She knew. Lexi straightened up, still smiling. "Oh, Victoria, I did not mean anything by it. I was just saying..." "I know exactly what you were saying." I picked up my water glass from the bench, took a slow sip, set it down on the table next to us. "You know what is funny, Lexi?" Her smile flickered. "What?" "I spend my days at what you call a boring numbers job, reviewing foreclosure notices, analyzing debt portfolios, tracking who owes what to whom." I watched her face, watched the confusion begin to form. "And here's the thing about boring numbers jobs. You learn things. You see patterns. You find out secrets that people think are buried." Lexi's smile was gone now. "What are you talking about?" I leaned in close enough to smell her expensive perfume, close enough to see the fear begin to flicker in her eyes. "Tomorrow," I said softly, "the bank will be cleaning this house instead." She went pale, actually pale, like someone had pulled the blood right out of her face. How do you..." "Have a lovely evening, Alexandra." I turned and walked away. Straight through the party, past the gaping mothers, past the whispers that were already starting, past my own mother who had finally stopped ignoring me. For the first time in my life, Margaret Lawson was looking at me with something other than disappointment. She was looking at me with fear. Derek looked up from his phone just long enough to see his wife standing frozen in the middle of the yard, her face white as paper. Sophie was waiting by the door, her purple dress bright against the white walls. "Mama, are you okay?" I took her hand. "I am fine, baby. Better than fine." We walked out the front door, down the driveway, past all those expensive cars. The autumn air hit my face, and for the first time in years, I could breathe. In the car, Sophie was quiet. She watched me in the rearview mirror as I drove, her little face serious. "Mama." "Yes, sweetheart." "Why does Aunt Lexi hate us?" I gripped the steering wheel. How do you explain cruelty to a 7-year-old? How do you explain a lifetime of being invisible? "She does not hate us, baby." "Then why is she so mean?" I thought about that question, really thought about it. "Some people," I finally said, "are so scared of being seen as less than, that they have to make everyone else feel small. It is not about us, it is about her." Sophie was quiet for a moment. "That is sad." "Yeah, it is." "Mama. I do not want to be like Aunt Lexi when I grow up." I looked at her in this mirror, at her big brown eyes, at the purple dress with the silver stars. "You never will be, sweetheart, I promise." That night after Sophie was asleep, I sat in my home office with a glass of wine and my laptop. On the screen was a file, a very important file, one that I had been building for 2 years. Alexandra Lawson Morrison, my perfect sister, my mother's favorite child, the golden girl who had everything. Mortgage 3 months behind, foreclosure notice scheduled for Tuesday. Credit cards, 4 of them, all maxed out. Total balance $63,000. Car loans, 2 vehicles, both underwater. Combined balance $48,000. Derek's business debt, the original loan from 5 years ago plus interest. Current balance $312,000. Total exposure just over $500,000. And every single one of those debts, every foreclosure notice, every collection letter, every desperate midnight email to creditors, they all led back to one company. A company where I had influence. Where I had spent 2 years quietly, patiently purchasing every piece of my sister's crumbling empire. She had no idea. No one did. I took a sip of wine and smiled. A real smile. The kind I had not felt in years. Tomorrow, the first notice would arrive. The official document that would tell my sister her perfect life was about to end. And there was nothing she could do about it. I closed the laptop and looked out the window at the dark sky. For 3 decades, I had been quiet. For 3 decades, I had been the invisible one, the lesser one, the one who just did her best. Not anymore. I smiled at my sister today. And for the first time in my life, she looked afraid. She should be. This is just the beginning. Marcus was waiting for me when we got home. He was sitting in his living room, laptop open, pretending to work. But I knew him. After 9 years of marriage, I knew when he was pretending. And I knew what he had been doing. Waiting. Watching the clock. Wondering how bad it had been this time. Sophie ran to him immediately. "Daddy, Aunt Lexi had a bounce house. Did she?" Marcus caught her mid-leap, pulling her into a hug. His eyes found mine over her head. A question. How bad? I shook my head slightly. Later. "Tell me everything," Marcus said to Sophie, settling her on his lap. "Start from the beginning." And she did. She told him about the bounce house and the cake and the DJ. She told him about the pretty decorations and Emma's presents. She did not mention that no one had played with her. She did not mention that her grandmother had not hugged her. She did not mention what Aunt Lexi had said. She was 7 years old and she already knew how to edit her own story. That hurt more than anything else. After Sophie was tucked in, I found Marcus in the kitchen. He had poured 2 glasses of wine and was leaning against the counter waiting. "How bad?" he asked. I took the wine, drank half of it in one go. Lexi told Sophie to go help the servants clean up. Marcus went very still. "She said what?" "In front of everyone. In front of all her fancy friends. In front of my mother." I set the glass down harder than I meant to. And Margaret just looked away, like she had not heard anything. "Victoria, I am done." The words came out flat. Final. I am done waiting. I am done being patient. I am done watching my daughter learn that she is somehow less than them. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, "Show me." I looked up at him. "Show you what?" "Everything. Show me everything you have been building." My home office was small. A desk, a laptop, a filing cabinet that looked ordinary but was not. Marcus pulled up a chair next to me as I logged into my secure files. "How much do you know?" I asked. "About what I have been doing?" "I know you set up 3 LLCs through my partner's firm. I know you have been buying distressed debt. I know it has something to do with Lexi and Derek." He paused. "I did not ask for details. You said you would tell me when you were ready." "I am ready." I pulled up the first file. A spreadsheet with names, dates, amounts. "Derek's original loan," I said. "The one he took out 5 years ago, $250,000 to save his failing business." Marcus nodded. He knew this part. Everyone in the family knew Derek's business had struggled, though Lexi pretended otherwise. What no one knows is that the business did not just struggle. It collapsed. Completely. Derek lost everything. He has been hiding it from Lexi for years, taking out more loans to cover the old ones, drowning in debt, while his wife throws $50,000 birthday parties. "How did you find out?" 2 years ago. I pulled up another file. I found his name in a distressed debt portfolio at work. His original loan had been sold, resold, bundled with others, traded like baseball cards between collection agencies and hedge funds. I traced it through 3 different holding companies. And then I bought it. Marcus stared at the screen. "You bought Derek's debt?" "All of it. The original $250,000 plus accumulated interest. Current balance $312,000. "But that is not all, is it?" "No." I opened another folder. That was just the beginning. File after file. Spreadsheet after spreadsheet. 2 years of patient, methodical acquisition. "The mortgage," I said. 3 months behind. $97,000 in arrears. I bought that 18 months ago. "How much did that actually cost you?" "About 30 cents on the dollar. Distressed debt sells cheap when no one thinks they will collect." I pulled up another file. The credit cards were even cheaper. 20 cents. Derek's business loan was the most expensive. I paid almost 40% because the collateral documentation was solid. Marcus did the math. I watched his face as the numbers clicked into place. So $500,000 in face value cost me around $150,000, plus legal fees, plus the structures you helped me set up. And you funded that how? Savings, some of it. Returns from earlier purchases funded later ones. And I hesitated. I borrowed against our retirement accounts, temporarily. His eyebrows rose. You did not tell me that part. I was going to, after. I met his eyes. Are you angry? He was quiet for a long moment. I watched his face, waiting for disappointment, for judgment. Instead, something else flickered in his expression. Something that looked almost like admiration. I am impressed, he finally said. Terrified but impressed. Marcus, you have been building this for 2 years. Alone. While working full-time, raising Sophie, dealing with your family. He shook his head slowly. 2 years of planning and I had no idea. You knew some of it. I knew you were up to something. I did not know it was this. He gestured at the screen. This is comprehensive. I learned from the best. I meant my job. I meant 11 years of watching companies fall apart, of tracing debt through shell corporations, of understanding exactly how financial pressure could break even the strongest facades. So what happens now? Marcus asked. You own their debt. What is the end game? I pulled up the final folder, the one labeled Timeline. The foreclosure notice goes out Tuesday. They will have 30 days to respond. They will not be able to. And if they try to sell the house, they cannot. The mortgage is underwater. They owe more than it is worth. And even if they found a buyer, I own the note. They would need my permission to negotiate terms. What about Derek's business debt? I can call it due whenever I want. Full balance, $312,000. They do not have it. Marcus was silent, processing. Victoria, he said slowly, this is not just about embarrassing them at a party. No, this could destroy them, completely. Yes. Is that what you want? I thought about that question. Really thought about it. I want them to feel what I felt, I said. What Sophie felt today. I want them to understand what it is like to be powerless, to have your whole world depend on someone else's mercy. I paused. And then I want them to know that the person holding all the power is me. Marcus reached over and took my hand. Then we do it right, he said. Every document in order. Every purchase legitimate. No shortcuts. Did you think I was going to let you do this alone? I felt something loosen in my chest, something I had been carrying for 2 years. I was not sure, I admitted. This is a lot. It is. He squeezed my hand. But they hurt Sophie. They have been hurting you for 30 years, and I have been watching it happen, waiting for you to decide enough was enough. A small smile crossed his face. I am good at waiting. I know you are. So tell me the rest. Tell me everything. I told him everything. I told him about growing up invisible, about the piano competition when I was 9, Lexi taking first place, me taking third. I remembered standing on that stage, my little trophy clutched to my chest, so proud, so hopeful. And then my mother's face in the audience. The way she had rushed past me to hug Lexi, the way she had refused to even acknowledge my trophy. She said it would make Lexi feel bad, I told Marcus. Third place. I was third place out of 47 children, and she acted like I had done something wrong. I remembered the car ride home. Lexi in the front seat chattering about her victory. Me in the back trying to make myself smaller, trying to understand why my success felt like a failure. I told him about birthday parties. Lexi's 18th had been a catered affair at the country club, 100 guests, a live band, a custom dress. Mine, 4 years later, had been pizza with just our parents. No guests, no celebration. Just Margaret looking at her watch, waiting for it to be over. I remember asking if I could have some friends over, I said. Just a few, maybe 5 or 6. My mother looked at me like I had asked for the moon. I told him about graduation. Lexi got a brand new BMW. I got a $200 check and a card that said, "Good job, Victoria. We knew you could do it." No exclamation point, no warmth, just acknowledgement like I had completed a minor task. I told him about the comments, the little cuts that accumulated over years until they formed a permanent scar. Victoria is the practical one. Victoria does not need as much attention. Victoria is fine. That word, fine. I had heard it so many times it had become a brand. Victoria is fine. She does not need anything. She is just there. I told him about trying to earn their love. Straight A's. Perfect behavior. Never causing trouble, never demanding anything, never being too much or too little or too anything. Just invisible, just convenient. I was valedictorian of my class, I said. Did I ever tell you that? No. I worked for 4 years to get that honor. 4 years of perfect grades, extra credit, staying up until midnight studying. I felt my jaw tighten. At graduation, my mother spent the entire ceremony complaining that Lexi was not there to see it. Lexi, who was on vacation in Cabo with her friends. She did not even bother to come home. Marcus's hand tightened on mine. When I gave my speech, I continued, I looked out at the audience. I found my parents in the crowd. My father was smiling. He always smiled at me, even when no one else did. But my mother, she was checking her phone. She was checking her phone during my valedictorian speech. I had not cried that day. I had learned by then not to cry. I spent my whole life trying to figure out what I did wrong, I said. Why they loved Lexi and not me. Why I was always on the outside looking in. My voice cracked slightly. Sophie is 7, Marcus. And she already knows. She already feels it. He pulled me closer. Let me lean into him. It ends here, he said. It ends now. Later, after Marcus had gone to bed, I sat alone in my office. On the screen was a folder I had not shown him, one I had barely opened myself.
Dad stuff.
3 years ago, when my father died, I had taken boxes from his study. Margaret had been too consumed with grief or too consumed with maintaining the appropriate image of grief to notice. I had loaded them into my car and brought them home thinking I would go through them eventually. I never had. The boxes sat in our garage gathering dust untouched. But something was nagging at me now, something my father had said in those last moments. I closed my eyes and let myself remember. The hospital room had smelled like antiseptic and flowers. Too many flowers sent by people who wanted to be seen sending flowers. My father lay in the bed smaller than I remembered him, his skin paper thin. It was strange seeing him like that. My father had always been a big man, not physically imposing, but present, solid. He had a way of filling a room just by being in it. Now he looked diminished, as if something had been slowly draining away. I had spent 3 days at that hospital. 3 days of watching, waiting, pretending I was not falling apart. Margaret came and went, always with an audience, always performing grief for whoever might be watching. Lexi flew in from wherever she had been stayed for 4 hours, then left for an important event she could not miss. But I stayed. I stayed because he was my father. Because despite everything, the silences, the secrets, the strange distance that had always existed between us, I knew he loved me. I knew it in a way I could not explain.
Victoria.
His voice was barely a whisper. I leaned closer. I am here, Dad. I should have... His eyes struggled to focus. There are things I should have told you. Things I should have done differently. Dad, do not worry about that now. Just rest.
No.
His hand found mine, gripping with surprising strength. Promise me. Promise me you will look at the papers in my desk. The locked drawer. What papers? Promise me. Something in his voice and urgency I had never heard before made me stop. I promise. He relaxed slightly. His eyes drifted to my shoulder, to the birthmark there visible at the edge of my blouse. He stared at it for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. Something that looked almost like grief. You have her mark, he murmured, just like she did. Whose mark, Dad? What are you talking about?
I tried to protect you. Both of you.
I thought it was the right thing. His voice cracked.
I was wrong. I was so wrong.
Dad, you are not making sense. Who are you talking about? But his eyes had closed, his grip loosened. The monitors beeped steadily, and a nurse appeared in the doorway to check his vitals. He did not speak again. Not really. A few mumbled words here and there, fragments of thoughts that made no sense. And 2 hours later, his heart simply stopped. I held his hand until it grew cold. I had not thought much about those words at the time. I had been too overwhelmed with grief, too busy managing funeral arrangements while my mother performed her tragedy for an audience. But now, I touched my shoulder without thinking. The crescent-shaped birthmark I had carried my whole life. My father had mentioned it more than once over the years, said it was rare, a family thing, said he had one just like it, and every time he mentioned it, Margaret would change the subject. Quickly, firmly, almost urgently. I remembered once when I was 12 showing my father a drawing I had made. He had looked at it for a long moment, then looked at me with an expression I did not understand. You have your mother's eyes, he had said softly. No, I do not, I had replied, confused. Mother has blue eyes, mine are brown. Something had flickered across his face then. Something that looked almost like pain. Before he could respond, Margaret had appeared in the doorway, her voice sharp. "Dinner is ready. Victoria, wash your hands." And that was that. The moment passed. The subject was closed. But I had never forgotten the look on his face. I stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the dark street. There was something in those boxes. Something my father had wanted me to find. Something Margaret did not want me to know. Tomorrow I would open them. But tonight I had other work to do. I went to check on Sophie before I returned to planning. She was curled up in her bed, her purple dress hanging carefully on the closet door. She had not wanted to take it off, not even for pajamas. She had been so proud of that dress. "Mommy!" I had not realized she was awake. "Hey, sweetheart." I sat on the edge of her bed. "I thought you were sleeping." I was, but then I woke up. She blinked at me in the dark. "Are you okay, Mommy?" "I am fine, baby. You seem sad at the party." I brushed her hair back from her face. "I was a little sad, but I am better now." "Because of Daddy." "Yes, because of Daddy." She reached up and hugged me, her small arms tight around my neck. "I love you, Mommy, to the moon and back." Something caught in my throat. It was our phrase, our special thing just between us. "I love you too, sweetheart, to the moon and back." She smiled and settled back into her pillow. I stayed there for a moment, watching her breathe. Then just as I was about to leave, "Mommy!" "Yes, baby?" "Why is Grandma so mean to us?" I froze in the doorway. "She is not mean, sweetheart. She is just—" "She is mean. I can tell." Sophie's voice was matter of fact, the simple honesty of a child who had not yet learned to lie to herself. "It is okay. You do not have to pretend. 7 years old, already seeing through facades. Go to sleep, sweetheart." "Okay, love you." "Love you too." I closed the door and stood in the hallway, her words echoing in my head. "Why is Grandma mean to us?" "Soon, baby. Soon you would understand, and soon she would not be able to hurt us anymore." Back in my office, I opened my work email. There was a message from Patricia Chen, my colleague at the firm, my ally, my friend. Sub-J Re Morrison Holdings. Status update. V. Everything is in place. Foreclosure notice drafted and ready for Tuesday delivery. All debt instruments properly transferred and documented. Legal review complete. I ran the numbers again. If they try to fight this, here's what we're looking at. Mortgage arrears $97,000, impossible to catch up without significant capital credit card debt. $63,000 in collections. Judgments pending. Auto loans, $48,000. Both vehicles underwater. Derek's business debt, $312,000. Callable immediately. Total exposure, $520,000. They have maybe $15,000 in liquid assets. Their credit is destroyed. There is no legitimate way out. They have maybe $15,000 in liquid assets. Their credit is destroyed. There is no legitimate way out. One more thing, I did some digging on the original mortgage. The terms Derek agreed to were predatory. 8.5% ARM with a balloon payment due in 18 months. He must have been desperate. Whatever they did to you, V, I hope this helps. I read the email twice. Then I opened a new document and started writing. Timeline, Phase 1, Day 1. Tuesday. Foreclosure notice delivered. 30-day clock begins. Day 5. Let them panic. Let them scramble. Day 10. Credit card companies file judgments. Day 15. Derek receives notice that business debt is being called due. Day 20. They realize all roads lead to the same place. Day 25. They come to me, or they lose everything. Day 30. The house, the cars, the illusion, I saved the document and closed my laptop. 29 days until the world Alexandra Lawson Morrison had built came crashing down. 29 days until she understood what it felt like to be invisible, to be powerless, to be at someone else's mercy. 29 days until my perfect, golden, untouchable sister learned the truth. The boring numbers girl had been keeping score, and it was finally time to collect. The text came at 9:14 in the morning. Delivered. Signed for. I stared at those 3 words on my screen. 2 years of planning, 2 years of patience. And now, it was real. Patricia had sent a photo with it. The foreclosure notice, crisp white paper in a manila envelope sitting on the doorstep of my sister's 5-bedroom mansion. The house that cost more than most people make in a decade. The house that was about to become someone else's problem. I was at my desk when I received it. My boring little numbers desk and my boring little numbers job. Around me, analysts typed and phones rang and the ordinary machinery of finance churned on. No one knew. No one suspected that the quiet woman in the corner office had just set fire to her own family. I saved the photo. Then I forwarded it to Patricia with a simple message, "Thank you." Her reply came 30 seconds later. "What are friends for?" Patricia Chen was one of the few people who knew everything. We had worked together for 8 years, survived 2 corporate mergers and a financial crisis. She had covered for me when Sophie was sick. I had helped her through her divorce. When I first told her what I was planning 2 years ago, we had been in her office at 11 at night, both of us nursing whiskey after a brutal day. "My sister," I had said, "she's drowning in debt and she has no idea." Patricia had raised an eyebrow. "Most people wouldn't smile when they say that." "Most people don't have my sister." I had told her everything then, the years of cruelty, the comments, the way I had been made to feel like a burden, an afterthought, a mistake. I had told her about Sophie at Lexi's previous birthday party, how Emma had ignored her completely, how Margaret had looked right through her. Patricia had listened without judgment. "Your sister sounds like a piece of work," she had said finally. "She is. And your mother, worse." Patricia had nodded slowly. "I have a sister like that. We don't talk anymore." She had poured more whiskey. "Tell me what you need." She had been helping me ever since, not just because I paid her, though I did, but because she understood. Some wounds never heal. Some families are better destroyed than preserved. I closed the photo and went back to my spreadsheets. There was nothing to do now but wait. Hey, the call came at 2:17. I knew it would come. I had been counting the hours since the notice was delivered. Lexi would need time to panic, time to call Derek, time to realize that no amount of crying or screaming would make the problem disappear. And then she would call me. My phone buzzed. Lexi Mobile flashed on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before answering. "Tori!" Her voice was bright. Too bright. The voice she used when she wanted something. "How are you? I feel like we haven't talked in forever." Tori. She only called me Tori when she needed me. The rest of the time I was Victoria. Or nothing at all. "I'm fine, Lexi. What do you need?" "What, I can't just call my baby sister to chat." A laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "I was actually thinking we should get dinner. Just the 2 of us. Sister time. There's this new place that just opened, Marcello's, very exclusive. Derek knows the owner." "Derek knows the owner. Of course he does. Derek always knows someone." "When were you thinking?" "Tonight? Too eager. Too desperate. I know it's short notice, but I just really miss you. After the party, I felt like maybe we got off on the wrong foot, and I want to make it up to you. Make it up to me, by asking me for money." I could see it coming from a mile away. "Sure," I said, 7 o'clock. "Perfect. Oh, Tori, this is going to be so much fun." I hung up without saying goodbye. Bah. Marcus came home at 5:30. He found me in the bedroom staring at my closet, trying to decide what to wear to my own ambush. Patricia said the notice was delivered. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm about to walk into a trap." "Because you are." He crossed the room and stood behind me, hands on my shoulders. "Lexi didn't call you because she misses you. She called because she's desperate." "I know. She's going to ask for money." "I know. Are you going to give it to her?" I turned to face him. "What do you think?" A small smile crossed his face. "I think Lexi has no idea what she's walking into." "No, she doesn't." His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and something shifted in his expression. Something I couldn't quite read. "I need to take this. Work stuff." He stepped out onto the back porch, closing the door behind him. I watched through the window as he paced, speaking in a low voice, his free hand gesturing in a way that suggested tension. This was the 3rd time this week he had taken a call privately. The 3rd time he had said work stuff without explaining. Marcus didn't keep secrets from me. At least he never had before. I filed it away. Another thing to think about later, when I had the bandwidth. Right now I had bigger battles to fight. Man. Before I left, I checked on Sophie. She was in her room coloring at her little desk. The purple dress hung on her closet door exactly where she had placed it after the party. She hadn't worn it since. I wondered if she ever would again. "Hey, sweetheart." I sat on the edge of her bed. "Mommy has to go to dinner tonight. Daddy will be here with you." She nodded without looking up from her drawing. "Sophie, is everything okay?" She put down her crayon, turned to face me, and I saw something in her eyes that made my heart ache. "Mommy." Her voice was small. "When Aunt Lexi said I should help the servants, was she being mean, or was she right?" "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "Maybe." She picked at the edge of her paper. "Maybe I'm not supposed to be at parties like that. Maybe I'm supposed to be with the people who work. Maybe that's where I belong." I pulled her into my arms so fast she squeaked. "Listen to me." My voice was fierce. "You belong anywhere you want to be. You are not less than anyone. You are not meant to serve anyone. You are meant to be loved and celebrated and cherished. Do you understand?" She nodded against my chest. Aunt Lexi was wrong. She was cruel. And she is going to learn that being cruel has consequences. "Okay, Mommy." "I love you, Sophie, more than anything in this world." "I love you too." I held her until her breathing slowed, and I made a silent promise. No one would ever make my daughter feel like that again? No one. Yeah. Marcello's smelled like money. That particular combination of expensive wine, truffle oil, and leather upholstery that screamed, "You don't belong here." Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in white linen. The other diners were dressed in clothes that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. A string quartet played something soft and classical in the corner. I did belong here. I just usually didn't bother. The maitre d' greeted me with practiced courtesy. "Do you have a reservation, madam?" "I'm meeting someone, Lawson Morrison." His expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Recognition? Interest. "Of course. Right this way." He led me through this restaurant past tables of couples leaning close and business partners making deals. I noticed the way other diners glanced up as we passed. Assessing, judging, deciding whether I was worth knowing. I wondered what they would think if they knew why I was really here. The waiter greeted us with the practiced warmth reserved for big spenders. I wondered if he could tell the difference between old money and borrowed time. Lexi couldn't. She never could. She was already at the table when I arrived. Champagne in hand, jewelry catching the light. I noticed immediately that the diamonds were different from the ones she usually wore. These were smaller, simpler. Cubic zirconia, if I had to guess. She had pawned her good jewelry, and she was hoping I wouldn't notice. I noticed everything. That was my job. That was what 11 years in distressed debt had taught me. How to spot the cracks beneath the surface. How to read desperation in the way someone held their wine glass. How to see the fear behind the smile. Lexi was terrified, and she was trying very hard not to show it. "Tori." She stood up to hug me, air kisses on both cheeks. "You look wonderful. I love what you've done with your hair." She hated my hair. She had made that clear at the party. "Thanks." I sat down across from her. "You look tired." Her smile flickered. I've just been so busy lately. You know how it is." I did not know how it was. I had never been too busy to look rested. We ordered. She got the most expensive thing on the menu, a filet mignon with truffle butter that cost more than a week of groceries for a normal family. I got a salad. I wasn't planning to stay long enough to eat. "So," Lexi said, swirling her champagne with practiced elegance, "how's work still doing the numbers thing?" "Still doing the numbers thing." "That must be so." She searched for the right word. "Steady. It must be nice to have something so steady." "Steady?" She said it the way someone might say boring, or small, or irrelevant. "It pays the bills," I said mildly. Of course it does." She took another sip. "I always admired that about you, you know. The way you're so content with simple things. Derek and I were always chasing the next big thing. But you've always been happy with less." Happy with less. I filed that away with all the other insults she had handed me over the years, wrapped in pretty paper and tied with bows. I watched her. Watched the way her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her glass. She had already finished most of it. Liquid courage. "How's Derek?" I asked. Something flickered in her eyes. "He's fine. Busy with work. You know how it is." "What exactly does Derek do these days?" I never quite understood. "Oh, you know, consulting, business development. He has his hands in a lot of things." She waved vaguely as if the specifics were beneath her. "He's always networking, making connections. That's how business works at our level." At our level. As if there were levels. As if she were on a higher one than me. His hands in a lot of debt, more like. But I didn't say that. Not yet. "That's nice." Lexi drained her glass and signaled for another. The waiter appeared immediately, practically materializing at her elbow. She ordered a bottle. A $200 bottle, I noted. Money she didn't have. "Tori, I need to tell you something." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a confidential whisper. The voice of sisterly intimacy. The voice of someone who wanted something. "Things have been difficult lately. Derek's business hit a rough patch. Nothing serious, just some cash flow issues. You know how these things go." "Cash flow issues. Temporary? Totally temporary." She laughed, but it sounded hollow, like a bell with a crack in it. "We're just in a tight spot right now, and I was thinking, you've always been so good with money, so practical, so careful. Each word was carefully chosen. Compliments that weren't quite compliments. I was hoping maybe you could help us out. Just a small loan, to tide us over. How much? She hesitated. Her fingers tightened on the stem of her glass. 50,000. I let the number hang in the air. $50,000. A small loan, she called it. That's a lot of money, Lexi. I know it is. But we're family, right? And I would pay you back. With interest, I promise. Family. That word from her mouth. After everything she had done. After what she had said to my daughter. Can I ask you something, Lexi? Of course. When you asked Sophie to help the servants clean up, what exactly did you mean by that? Her face went blank for a moment. Then the mask slid back into place. Oh, Tori, that was nothing. I was just joking around. You know how kids are. I thought she might enjoy helping out. Enjoy helping out? Yes, like a game. Kids love that kind of thing. I looked at my sister, at her perfectly styled hair and her fake diamonds and her desperate lying eyes, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. I know about the foreclosure notice, Lexi. Her smile froze. I know about the 3 months of missed mortgage payments. I know about the $63,000 in credit card debt. I know about Derek's business loan, the one for $250,000 that he never told you about. How? Her voice came out as a whisper. How do you know that? I know because I work in finance. I know because tracking debt is literally my job. I leaned forward. And I know because I own it. You, what? I own your debt, Lexi. All of it. The mortgage, the credit cards, Derek's business loan, every single cent you owe to me. She stared at me. Her face had gone the color of old paper. That's not possible. It's very possible. It took me 2 years to acquire it all, 2 years of patience, 2 years of waiting for exactly this moment. But why? I stood up slowly, placed a $100 bill on the table, more than enough to cover my salad and her champagne. Why? Because for 30 years you've treated me like I was nothing. Because you've made me feel small and invisible and worthless. Because 3 days ago you looked at my daughter and told her she belonged with the servants. I leaned down until my face was close to hers. You should have been nicer to the boring numbers girl, Lexi. She was paying attention. I straightened up and walked out of the restaurant. Behind me, I could hear Lexi calling my name. Victoria, Victoria, wait! You can't just Victoria! I didn't turn around. The other diners were staring. Whispers spread like ripples across the room. By tomorrow, everyone would know. The wealthy women who lunched together, the businessmen who played golf on weekends, the society pages that tracked every scandal. They would all know that Alexandra Lawson Morrison's perfect life was crumbling. Good, let them watch. The autumn air hit my face as I stepped outside. Cold and clean and sharp. The valet offered to get my car, but I waved him off. I needed to walk, needed to feel the ground beneath my feet. I found my car in the lot and sat there for a long moment, hands on the steering wheel. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. I could see my reflection in the rearview mirror. The same face I had seen all my life. The invisible one. The practical one. The one who was supposed to be grateful for scraps. I didn't feel invisible anymore. I had done it. I had actually done it. After 2 years of planning, 2 years of patience, I had looked my sister in the eye and told her the truth. And it had felt good. Better than good. It had felt like finally being seen. Like standing up after a lifetime of kneeling. Like breathing after years of holding my breath. My phone was buzzing. Text after text. Lexi begging me to come back, to explain, to give her another chance. Victoria, please, this is crazy. We can work this out. I don't understand. Why are you doing this? Please call me, please. I ignored them all. I thought about Sophie, about her small voice asking if she belonged with the servants, about the way her face had crumpled when Lexi said those words. This was for her, all of it. I pulled out my phone and found Patricia's number. She picked up on the second ring. Victoria, I was wondering when I'd hear from you. It's time. Activate everything, all of it. You're sure? I looked through my windshield at the restaurant, at the warm light spilling from the windows, at the world my sister was about to lose. I've never been more sure of anything, and Patricia, prepare the disclosure package. I want her to know exactly who's holding the strings. A pause, then consider it done. I hung up, sat in the darkness. The parking lot was quiet now. Most of the other diners had gone home to their comfortable lives, their comfortable lies. For 2 years I had been planning, building, waiting. The waiting was over. I had just made the call that would destroy everything my sister thought she had. Her house, her status, her carefully constructed fantasy of superiority. And there was no going back now. I started the car and drove home. The streetlights blurred past my window like distant stars. Somewhere across town, Lexi was probably sobbing into her champagne, wondering how this had happened. Wondering where she had gone wrong. She had gone wrong when she told my daughter to help the servants. She had gone wrong when she chose cruelty over kindness. She had gone wrong when she underestimated the boring numbers girl. But she was about to learn. They all were. The reckoning had begun. I woke up Thursday morning feeling lighter than I had in years. It was strange. I had just declared war on my own family. I had looked my sister in the eye and told her I owned her entire world. I should have felt guilty, anxious, something. Instead, I felt free. Marcus was already up making coffee. Sophie was eating cereal and humming a song from her favorite cartoon. Everything felt normal, peaceful, like the calm before a storm I knew was coming. My phone buzzed. Patricia. Collection notices sent. Credit card companies notified. Clock is ticking. I smiled and put the phone away. "What's that smile about?" Marcus asked, handing me a cup of coffee. "Nothing, just a good morning." He raised an eyebrow but didn't push. That was one of the things I loved about him. He knew when to ask questions and when to wait. I kissed Sophie on the forehead, grabbed my bag, and headed to work. The storm could wait a few more hours. It arrived at 11:47. My phone rang. Margaret Lawson on the screen. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "Hello, Mother. What have you done?" Her voice was shaking. Not with tears, with rage. Pure, undiluted rage. "Alexandra called me at 2 in the morning. 2 in the morning, Victoria. She was hysterical. She has never been hysterical, not even when your father died." I noted that. Lexi didn't cry when Dad died, but she cried about losing her house. "She called me sobbing," Margaret continued, "saying you know things, saying you said something about the bank, about owning her debts. What did you tell her?" "The truth." "The truth?" Margaret laughed. It was an ugly sound, cold and sharp like broken glass. "You don't know the truth about anything, Victoria. You never have." Something about the way she said it made me pause. There was something underneath those words. Something hidden. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means you should be very careful about what games you play, very careful about what stones you turn over." Her voice dropped lower, dangerous. "Some secrets are better left buried, for everyone's sake." "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning from your mother." "You've never been much of a mother to me, Margaret. Why start pretending now?" Silence on the other end. Then, "You ungrateful little—" She stopped herself, took a breath. When she spoke again, her voice was ice. "If you do this, Victoria, if you destroy your sister over some petty grudge, you will be dead to this family. Completely dead. I will make sure of it." "I've been dead to this family my whole life. The only difference is now I know it." I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking. Something cold settled in my chest and stayed there. But underneath the fear, underneath the doubt, there was something else. Certainty. Finally, after 34 years of wondering, I was certain. Margaret had never loved me, and now I had proof. The day went downhill from there. At 2:30, I got a call from Sophie's school. Could I come pick her up early? There had been an incident. I found my daughter in the principal's office, eyes red, shoulders hunched. She looked so small in that big chair, so fragile. "What happened?" I asked the principal, a tired-looking woman named Mrs. Patterson. Some of the other children were unkind. There was teasing. It escalated. "Teasing about what?" Mrs. Patterson shifted uncomfortably. "Apparently there's been some talk about your family, about financial difficulties." I felt my jaw tighten. Word traveled fast in small towns. Too fast. "Sophie, honey." I knelt down in front of her. "What did they say?" She wouldn't look at me. Her fingers twisted in her lap. "Sophie." "They said we're fake rich." Her voice was barely a whisper. "They said Aunt Lexi is going to be homeless." She swallowed hard. "They said I should practice living in a shelter now, so I'll be ready." Everything seemed to stop. "Who said that? Tommy Peterson? His mom works somewhere important. At a bank or something." Sophie finally looked up at me, and her eyes were swimming with tears. "Is it true, Mommy? Is Aunt Lexi going to be homeless? Are we going to be homeless too?" I pulled her into my arms and held her tight. "No, baby. We are not going to be homeless. What's happening with Aunt Lexi has nothing to do with us. Our house is safe. Our family is safe." "But everyone knows." Her voice cracked. "Everyone is talking about it. Emma said her mom said you did something bad. Something mean. Emma, my niece, Lexi's daughter, already being poisoned against us.
Let them talk. We know who we are.
Do we? Sophie pulled back and looked at me. Her eyes were too old for a 7-year-old, too knowing. Sometimes I don't know who we are anymore, Mommy.
Neither do I, baby. Neither do I.
I drove her home in silence. She stared out the window, watching the trees blur past. When we pulled into the driveway, she finally spoke again. Mommy.
Yes, sweetheart. Am I a bad person, like Tommy said?
My heart cracked right down the middle. No, baby. You are not a bad person. You are kind and smart and wonderful. What Tommy said was cruel and wrong, and he should never have said it.
Then why did he?
Because some people... I searched for the right words. Some people are hurting inside. And when they hurt, they try to make other people hurt too. It's not right, but it's what they do.
Like Aunt Lexi.
I paused, out of the mouths of babes. Maybe, a little bit. Sophie nodded slowly, processing this. Then she unbuckled her seatbelt and got out of the car. At the door, she turned back to me. Mommy, I'm glad you're not like them. I'm glad you don't try to make people hurt. I wanted to cry. I wanted to tell her that I was exactly like them, that I was deliberately hurting people right now, that I had started a war that had already splashed onto her innocent life. Instead, I just smiled. Go inside, sweetheart. I'll make you some hot chocolate.
Sha.
That night, after Sophie was asleep, Marcus and I sat in the kitchen. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Patricia called, he said. Derek tried to negotiate with the credit card companies, offered them 20 cents on the dollar. What did they say? They said the debt had already been sold, that he would have to negotiate with the new owner. A grim smile. He doesn't know who that is yet. He'll find out soon enough. Marcus was quiet for a moment, studying me. Victoria, are you sure about this? After what happened with Sophie today? Sophie got hurt because Lexi's mess spilled over onto her. That's not my fault. No, but it might get worse before it gets better. I know. I stared at my hands. I know it might. But I've spent my entire life being the one who backs down, the one who keeps the peace, the one who lets them hurt me because fighting back might cause problems. I looked up at him. I'm done, Marcus. I'm done letting them win. He reached over and took my hand. Okay, then we see it through, together. Chet. I couldn't sleep that night. At 2 a.m, I woke up and Marcus's side of the bed was empty. I found him in the living room, laptop open, papers spread across the coffee table. He closed the laptop quickly when he saw me. Hey. His voice was too casual. Couldn't sleep. What are you working on? Just a case. Complex one. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Go back to bed. I'll be there soon. Marcus, what's going on? Nothing. He stood up, blocking my view of the papers. I promise, Vic. It's nothing to worry about. I just need to finish something. I wanted to push, wanted to demand answers. But something in his face stopped me. A look I had never seen before. Almost guilty. Okay, I said slowly. Don't stay up too late. I went back to bed, but I didn't sleep. Something was wrong. I could feel it. I just didn't know what. The next morning, Friday, I called in sick to work. I told Marcus I needed a mental health day. He didn't argue. He kissed me goodbye, dropped Sophie at school, and went to work like everything was normal. But nothing was normal. Not anymore. I went to the garage. The boxes from my father's study were exactly where I had left them 3 years ago. Stacked in the corner, gathering dust untouched since the day I had packed them in a grief-stricken haze. I remembered that day. The funeral had been the day before. Hundreds of people in black saying words that meant nothing. Margaret had been magnificent in her performance of grief, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief, accepting condolences with tragic grace. The perfect widow. I had felt hollow, empty, like something had been carved out of me. My father was the only one who had ever really seen me. The only one who smiled when I walked into a room. The only one who asked about my day and actually listened to the answer. And now he was gone. I had packed his study myself. Margaret wanted to hire people, but I insisted. I needed something to do with my hands, something to focus on besides the grief. I had been careful, methodical. Every book, every paper, every photograph carefully boxed and labeled. I had done it all in a haze of tears, barely seeing what I was packing. My father's last words echoed in my head. Papers. In my desk, the locked drawer, you need to see them. I had never looked. 3 years and I had never looked. Part of me had been afraid, I realized, afraid of what I might find, afraid that some truths were better left buried. But after Margaret's words on the phone, after what she said about secrets, after 34 years of wondering why I was never enough, I needed to know. Today that changed. Hey. I started with the largest box. Files. Endless files. Tax returns from the 1980s, old business correspondence, nothing important. The second box was more personal. Photo albums, birthday cards, a collection of letters my parents had written to each other before they were married. I paused on a photo of my father as a young man. He looked happy, carefree. So different from the tired, guilty man I remembered from my childhood. What happened to you, Dad? What did you do? The third box was smaller, heavier, filled with leather-bound journals. I opened one at random, my father's handwriting cramped and small. March 15th. V's birthday. Margaret refuses to celebrate. Says V is too demanding as it is. I tried to argue, but she shut me down. Bought V a gift anyway. A small bracelet. She cried when I gave it to her. Sometimes I wonder if she knows. If she can feel the difference between how we treat her and how we treat L. God forgive me. V, that was me. L was Lexi. I flipped to another entry. June 3rd. V asked today why Mommy doesn't love her. I didn't know what to say. How do you explain to a child that she's paying for sins that aren't her own? I should tell her the truth. Should have told her years ago. But Margaret would never allow it. And maybe ignorance is kinder. Maybe not knowing is better than knowing the whole ugly truth. My hands were shaking. What truth? What sins? I kept reading. Entry after entry. Years of guilt and regret poured onto yellowed pages. And then I found it. The last entry, dated 2 weeks before his death. I can feel it coming. The end. The doctors try to be optimistic, but I know my body. I know what's happening. I've been a coward my whole life. A coward when it mattered most. I let Margaret make decisions that weren't hers to make. I let her take something that didn't belong to her. And I've watched V suffer for it. Watched her wonder why she's different. Why she doesn't fit. Why her own mother seems to hate her. Viv deserves the truth. All of it. I've written it down. Everything. The affair. Elena. The baby. What Margaret did to Rosa. All of it. I hid the letter in the small box. The one with the false bottom. I couldn't risk Margaret finding it. She would destroy it, just like she destroys everything that threatens her perfect image. V, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't braver. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. Find the letter, learn the truth, and then do what I never could. Be free. Man. The small box was in the corner, half hidden behind old Christmas decorations. I almost didn't see it, almost walked away, but something pulled me toward it. A feeling I couldn't explain, like my father's ghost whispering in my ear. Look here. Look closer. This is what you've been searching for. I pulled off the lid. More files, more papers. But the bottom felt wrong, too high, too thick. I pressed down. It shifted. A false bottom. My father had hidden something, deliberately, secretly. Something he knew Margaret would destroy if she found it. My hands were shaking as I lifted the false bottom. Underneath was a large manila envelope, yellowed with age. My father's handwriting on the front. For Victoria. To be opened after my death. Everything seemed to stop. 3 years. This had been here for 3 years. Since the day I packed these boxes. Since the day I was too grief-stricken to look closely. He had been trying to tell me. All along he had been trying to tell me. I sat there for a long moment, the envelope in my hands. Heavy with secrets. Heavy with truth. Then I opened it. Teta. Inside were documents, so many documents. A letter from my father, handwritten 12 pages long. A birth certificate. Photos. Medical records. Legal papers. I started with the birth certificate, and that's when my world ended. The name under mother was not Margaret Lawson. It was someone else. A stranger. A woman I had never heard of, never met, never knew existed. Elena Vasquez. I stared at the name, read it again and again, trying to make it make sense. Elena Vasquez. Born 1961. Deceased 1991. Deceased the same year I was born. Under father, my father's name was listed, James Michael Lawson. But the mother was not the woman who raised me. The mother was a stranger who died 34 years ago. And suddenly everything made sense. Every dismissive look Margaret had ever given me. Every cold shoulder. Every time she had looked at me like I was an inconvenience rather than a daughter. It wasn't because I failed to measure up. It wasn't because I was flawed or lacking or wrong. It was because I wasn't hers. I had never been hers. I was someone else's daughter. A stranger's child raised by a woman who had never wanted me. A weight pressed on my chest so heavy I could barely breathe. 34 years of wondering why I wasn't good enough. 34 years of trying to earn love that was never going to come. 34 years of believing something was fundamentally wrong with me, and it was all a lie. I thought about all those years, the birthday parties where I sat in the corner while Lexi was showered with attention, the graduations where my achievements were overlooked, the holidays where I felt like a guest in my own home. I thought about my father's journal entries, the guilt he carried, the secret he kept. I thought about Margaret's words on the phone. "You don't know the truth about anything, Victoria. You never have." She was right, I hadn't known, but now I did. The question was no longer why Margaret hated me. The question was, who was I really? Who was Elena Vasquez? What happened to her? Why did she die the year I was born? And what had Margaret done to make sure I never found out? I looked at my father's letter in my hands. 12 pages of answers I wasn't sure I was ready for. But there was no turning back now. There had never really been a choice. From the moment I opened that envelope, my life had split in two. Before the truth, and after. This was after. I began to read. The sun was coming up when I finished reading my father's letter. 12 pages. 12 pages of secrets, lies, and betrayal. 12 pages that rewrote everything I thought I knew about my life. I sat on the cold garage floor surrounded by boxes and dust and the wreckage of my family's carefully constructed lies. My hands were shaking. My face was wet with tears I didn't remember crying. "Let me tell you what the letter said. My darling Victoria," my father wrote, "if you are reading this, I am gone. And I am sorry. Sorry for leaving you. Sorry for not telling you sooner. Sorry for all the years I stayed silent when I should have spoken. You deserve the truth, all of it, no matter how much it hurts. I'm going to tell you about your mother. Your real mother. And I'm going to tell you what Margaret did. Her name was Elena Vasquez. I met her 35 years ago when I was 41 years old. I had been married to Margaret for 15 years. We had Alexandra, who was 4. We had the house, the reputation, the life everyone envied. And I was miserable. I don't say that to excuse what I did. There is no excuse, but I need you to understand. Margaret and I had stopped loving each other years before. Maybe we never really loved each other at all. Our marriage was arranged by our families, 2 wealthy names joining together. A merger, not a romance. We stayed together for appearance for Alexandra for all the wrong reasons. We lived in the same house but led separate lives. Margaret had her charity events and her social climbing. I had my work. We barely spoke except when necessary. We slept in separate rooms. I was lonely in a way I couldn't explain, like a man dying of thirst while standing in a river, surrounded by everything and yet having nothing that mattered. And then I met Elena. She was a nurse at the hospital where I was being treated for a minor heart issue. 24 years old. Dark hair, brown eyes, a smile that could light up a room. She was kind in a way I had forgotten people could be. Gentle. Real. She didn't care about my money or my name. She just saw me. The real me. I fell in love with her. Completely. Helplessly. In a way I had never loved anyone before. Our affair lasted 8 months. 8 months of stolen moments and secret meetings and a happiness I had never known. I told myself it was wrong. I told myself to stop. But I couldn't. For the first time in my life I felt alive. And then she told me she was pregnant. The words hit me like a wall. My father had an affair. A real 8-month affair with another woman. And that woman had gotten pregnant with me. I kept reading. Elena wanted to keep the baby. Wanted to keep you. She didn't ask me for money or promises or anything except the chance to be a mother. I should have left Margaret then. Should have done the right thing. But I was a coward. I was afraid of the scandal, the shame, the destruction of everything I had built. I told Elena I would support her financially. I told her I would be part of our child's life, even if I couldn't be with her publicly. I told her 100 things that sounded good but meant nothing. She deserved better. So did you. The pregnancy was difficult. The doctors warned of complications. Elena had a condition that made childbirth risky, but she refused to consider any other option. "This baby is a gift," she told me. "Whatever happens, this baby is worth everything. On March 15th, 34 years ago, you were born. And Elena died. I stopped breathing. My mother. My real mother. She had died giving birth to me. I looked at the photo in my lap. The one from the envelope. A young woman with dark hair and brown eyes and a smile that looked exactly like mine. Elena Vasquez. My mother. The woman who chose me over her own life. I stared at the photo for a long time, tracing the lines of her face, the shape of her eyes, the curve of her smile. She looked like me. Or I looked like her. The resemblance was undeniable. The same brown eyes, the same dark hair, the same way of tilting her head. And there on her left shoulder, visible in the photograph, a birthmark. Crescent-shaped. Just like mine. My father had mentioned that once. Said we both had it. Said it was rare. A family thing. Margaret had always changed the subject when he brought it up. Now I understood why. Every time he mentioned that birthmark, he was reminding her of Elena, reminding her of the woman he had loved, reminding her that I was never really hers. I had never known my mother, never heard her voice, never felt her arms around me, and she had loved me enough to die for me. The letter continued. I was destroyed, James wrote. Elena was gone. You were here, this tiny perfect baby, and I didn't know what to do. Rosa wanted to take you. That was Elena's wish. Rosa Vasquez was Elena's younger sister, 2 years younger. She worked as a waitress at a diner in Newark. Not wealthy, not powerful, but family. Real family. Elena had made Rosa promise. If anything happened during the birth, Rosa would take the baby. Rosa would raise you as her own. She had already started setting up a nursery in her small apartment. She was ready to sacrifice everything to keep you. But Margaret found out. I don't know how. She had ways of knowing things. Spies, maybe, private investigators, people who owed her favors. She showed up at Rosa's apartment with 2 lawyers. I wasn't there. Margaret made sure of that. By the time I heard what had happened, it was already done. Margaret told Rosa that if she tried to take you, she would be destroyed. Sued into oblivion. Accused of kidnapping. Arrested. Deported even though Rosa was an American citizen. Margaret didn't care about facts. She cared about winning. Rosa was 22 years old. She had no money, no lawyers, no power. She signed the papers Margaret put in front of her. I found out later that Rosa was crying the whole time. That she begged Margaret to let her at least see you sometimes. That she promised to stay away, to never tell anyone the truth if only she could watch you grow up from a distance. Margaret said no, and then she had Rosa followed. For years. Making sure she never got too close. Making sure she never tried to contact you. Margaret told me Rosa had seen reason, that she had agreed it was better for you to be raised in a stable home. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. I should have fought harder, should have gone to Rosa myself. But Margaret threatened to expose everything if I interfered, my career, our family name, everything I had built. I chose my reputation over your real family. I am sorry, Victoria. I am more sorry than words can say. I set down the letter. My blood went cold. Margaret had stolen me. She had threatened and bullied a grieving 22-year-old girl into giving up her sister's baby. She had ripped me away from the only family I had left. And then she had raised me to believe I was unlovable, unwanted, a burden. All these years of wondering what was wrong with me, of trying to earn her love, of believing I was somehow less than Lexi, less than everyone. It was all a lie. Margaret never loved me because I was never hers to love. I was evidence of her husband's betrayal. A reminder of everything she wanted to forget. And she made sure I suffered for it, every single day. There was more in the envelope. Elena's letter. My mother's letter. Written before my birth, just in case. I opened it with trembling hands. My darling child. I don't know if I will be there to tell you this in person. The doctors say the birth will be difficult. They say there are risks. I am trying not to be afraid, but I want you to know some things just in case. You were wanted. From the very first moment I knew you existed, you were wanted. You were not a mistake. You were not an accident. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I know your father cannot be with us. I know our situation is complicated. I will not pretend it is not painful. But none of that changes how I feel about you. You are loved. You are enough, just as you are. I dream about you every night. I imagine your face, your laugh, your first words. I imagine teaching you to read, to ride a bike, to be brave. I imagine watching you grow up and become whoever you are meant to be. If I am not there to do those things, if something happens and you grow up without me, please know this. I would have chosen you, every time, over everything, over everyone. You are my heart, little one. Whoever you become, wherever you go, whatever you do, I am with you. Always. With all my love forever. Your mother. I don't know how long I sat there holding that letter crying. For the mother I never knew. For the love I was supposed to have. For the little girl who grew up thinking she was unlovable when all along she had been loved. By someone who never even got to see her face. 34 years. I had spent 34 years believing I was a burden, a disappointment, a mistake. And the whole time there was a letter. A letter from a woman who wanted me, who loved me, who would have chosen me over everything. Margaret had kept this from me. She had hidden my mother's love and let me believe I was worthless. I would never forgive her for that, never. There was one more thing in the envelope, a small piece of paper yellowed with age. My father's handwriting, Rosa Vasquez Miller. Current address. Unknown, last known, Newark, New Jersey. Phone number, old may not work. And underneath, I hired someone to find her a few years ago. She married, changed her name, but she never stopped looking for you, Victoria. She never gave up. If you want to find her, she wants to be found. Marcus found me in this garage at 7 in the morning. I must have looked terrible. Red eyes, tear-stained face, surrounded by papers and photos and the wreckage of everything I thought I knew. Victoria. He knelt down beside me. What happened? I woke up and you were gone. I handed him the letter, watched his face as he read. It took him a long time. The color drained from his face. His jaw tightened. When he finished, he looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Margaret, he said quietly, all this time. All this time. And Rosa, your aunt, she's still out there. Apparently. I showed him the paper with Rosa's information. My father tried to find her before he died. Did he succeed? I don't know. The address is old. The phone number might not work anymore. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Processing. Then, what do you want to do? I looked at the photo of Elena, my mother, the woman I would never meet. I want to find her. Rosa. I want to know what happened. I want to know who my mother really was. And Margaret and Lexi, what about all of that? I had almost forgotten. The foreclosure, the debt, the war I had started with my own family. That continues too. My voice was hard. Margaret didn't just treat me badly. She stole me. She took me from people who loved me and raised me to believe I was nothing. She doesn't get to walk away from that. Marcus nodded slowly. Then we do both. We find Rosa and we finish what you started. He took my hand. Did you think I would let you do this alone? The rest of Friday was a blur. I called in sick to work again, spent hours reading and rereading the letters, the documents, the evidence of Margaret's betrayal. Marcus went to his office but kept checking in. Every hour a text. How are you holding up? And I love you. And we'll get through this. Sophie came home from school in a better mood than the day before. No one had bothered her today. Small mercies. I made dinner, helped with homework, pretended everything was normal. Inside, I was falling apart. Saturday morning, my phone rang. Patricia, we have a problem, she said without preamble. Lexi hired a lawyer, Richard Blackwell. I knew that name. Blackwell was notorious. Aggressive, ruthless, willing to do anything to win. What's he doing? Sending letters. To your firm. To your boss. Claiming you used your position to target your sister. That you had access to confidential information and used it for personal vendetta. My stomach dropped. That's not true. I know it's not true. You were careful. Everything you did was legal. Patricia paused. But it doesn't matter if it's true. It matters if it looks bad. And right now it looks bad. What do I do? Nothing. Yet. I'll handle Blackwell. But Victoria, you need to be careful. Lexi is fighting back. And she's fighting dirty. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. Derek. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Victoria! His voice was ragged, desperate. Please, I need to talk to you. Why would I talk to you? Because I know things. Things about Margaret. Things you need to know. I went still. What things? Not on the phone. Meet me somewhere. Anywhere. Please, Victoria, I'm begging you. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. A pause. But I'm going to tell you anyway. Because I'm tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of being part of this. I thought about it. Derek was weak. Derek was a liar. But Derek was also desperate enough to turn on his own side. Tomorrow, I said, I'll text you a location. Thank you, Victoria. I hung up without responding. That afternoon, Margaret came to my house. I saw her car pull into the driveway. Black Mercedes, always a black Mercedes. I considered not answering the door, but something in me wanted to face her, wanted to look her in the eye now that I knew the truth. I opened the door. Victoria. She stood on my porch dressed impeccably as always. Cream-colored blouse, pearl earrings, the mask of a perfect society matron. Margaret, may I come in? No. Her eyes narrowed. I see. So this is how it's going to be. How what's going to be? This vendetta. Against your sister. Against our family. She shook her head. I thought I raised you better than this. Something cold and hard crystallized inside me. You didn't raise me, Margaret. You kept me. There's a difference. Excuse me. I found the letters, my father's letters and Elena's. The blood drained from her face. For just a moment, the mask slipped. I saw fear there. Real fear. Where did you... Does it matter? I stepped forward. I know everything, Margaret. I know about Elena. I know about Rosa. I know what you did. Whatever you think you know, I know you stole me from my family. I know you threatened a grieving 22-year-old girl until she signed away her rights. I know you spent 34 years making me believe I was worthless because you couldn't stand looking at the proof of your husband's affair. Margaret's jaw tightened. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. I saved you. Her voice was ice. That woman Rosa, she was nobody. A waitress. She couldn't have given you the life I gave you. The life you gave me. I laughed. It was an ugly sound. You gave me a childhood of being invisible, of being ignored, of being told I was never good enough. That's the life you gave me. I gave you opportunities, education, a future. You gave me trauma. And you hid the one person who actually wanted me. Elena was nobody, Margaret said, her voice sharp. A nurse who seduced a married man. She got pregnant to trap him. She was a gold digger, Victoria, nothing more. Don't you dare. My voice was low, dangerous. Don't you dare talk about her like that. It's the truth. The truth is that she loved me. The truth is that she died giving me life. The truth is that she wrote me a letter telling me I was wanted, telling me I was enough, telling me she would have chosen me over everything. I stepped closer. The truth is that you took that letter and hid it for 34 years because you couldn't stand for me to know I was loved. Margaret's face went pale. Where did you get that letter? Where do you think my father left it for me? Everything, all your dirty secrets. James had no right. James was my father. He had every right. I was shaking now, with anger, with grief, with 34 years of pain finally finding somewhere to go. You know what I keep thinking about, Margaret, all those years? All those birthdays when you couldn't be bothered to celebrate? All those holidays when you made me feel like an intruder in my own home? All those times you looked at me like I was something you had stepped in. Victoria? I thought something was wrong with me. I thought I was broken somehow, unlovable. And the whole time you knew. You knew I wasn't yours. You knew you had stolen me from people who loved me. And you punished me for it. Every single day. Margaret was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was quiet. Dangerous. You're making a mistake, Victoria. Whatever you think you're going to accomplish with this crusade, you're going to regret it. Is that a threat? It's a warning. She turned to leave, then stopped. Some secrets are better left buried, remember that. She walked back to her car without looking back. I watched her drive away. And I felt nothing. Nothing but cold, clear certainty. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. That night I got a text. Unknown number. A photo attachment. I opened it. My blood went cold. The photo showed me from across the street. Walking out of Patricia's office building. The timestamp said 3 weeks ago, before the party, before any of this became public. Someone had been following me, watching me, documenting my movements. The angle was professional, the quality was sharp. This was not a lucky shot from a passerby. This was surveillance. How long had they been watching? What else did they know? I scrolled down. Underneath the photo, a message. I know what you have been doing, Victoria. Did you really think I would not figure it out? And then just a single letter. L. Lexi. She had hired someone. A private investigator, probably. Maybe her lawyer had connections. She was fighting back, and she was fighting dirty. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. And then my phone buzzed again. Another message. Different number. I opened it. Victoria. I know who you are. I have been waiting 34 years to find you. Please call me. And a name. Rosa. I sat there in the darkness of my living room, 2 messages glowing on my phone. Lexi's threat. I know what you have been doing. Rosa's hope. I have been waiting 34 years to find you. 2 paths, 2 futures. One led to war, to destruction, to burning everything down. The other led to something else entirely. A family I had never met. A past I did not know. Answers to questions I had been asking my whole life. Fear and hope, both at once, like being pulled in 2 directions. I put down the phone. Tomorrow I would have to choose. Tomorrow I would have to decide what kind of person I wanted to be. But tonight in the darkness I let myself hope. Someone had been looking for me. Someone from my real family. Someone who had never stopped searching. Maybe I was not as alone as I thought. Maybe there was more to fight for than revenge. Maybe after 34 years I was finally about to find out who I really was. Sunday morning I called Rosa. My hands were shaking as I dialed the number. 10 digits that might connect me to the family I never knew I had. 10 digits that might change everything. It rang twice. Hello. A woman's voice, warm, slightly accented, trembling with hope. This is Victoria. Silence. Then a sound I will never forget. A sob. Raw and broken and full of 34 years of waiting. Victoria, oh mija, I have been looking for you for so long. I didn't know what to say. What do you say to the aunt who should have raised you? The woman who was robbed of you before you could even walk? I found my father's letters, I said. I know what Margaret did. She stole you from me. Rosa's voice cracked. She came to my apartment with lawyers, told me I would never see you again, told me she would have me arrested if I tried. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize. You were a baby. You didn't know. A pause. I never stopped looking, Victoria. Every year on your birthday I would send a card. Margaret sent them all back, unopened. Something cold settled in my chest. 34 birthday cards. 34 years of love returned to sender. Can we meet? I asked. I have so many questions. Whenever you want, wherever you want. I have waited 34 years for this. I can wait a little longer. We made plans. Saturday, a coffee shop in Newark, neutral territory. I hung up the phone and sat there for a long moment. I had an aunt, a real aunt, someone who had wanted me from the very beginning. But I couldn't think about that now. I had a war to finish first. Monday morning, I went to see Lexi, not at a restaurant this time, not in public. I wanted to see her face when she realized exactly how trapped she was. I drove to her house, the 5-bedroom mansion that would soon belong to me, the perfectly manicured lawn, the 3-car garage, the monument to a life built on lies. Derek's car was in the driveway. Good. I wanted him to hear this too. I rang the doorbell. Lexi opened the door. She was wearing expensive athleisure and no makeup. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. Victoria. Her voice was flat. What are you doing here? We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. That's fine, you can listen. I pushed past her into the house. I'll do the talking. The living room was exactly as I remembered it. White furniture, crystal vases, everything perfect, everything fake. Lexi followed me and her face tight with anger. You can't just barge into my house. Actually, I can. I sat down on her pristine white couch. Considering I own it. You don't own anything. You have some dead instruments. My lawyer says, your lawyer is wrong. I pulled a folder from my bag. Sit down, Lexi. This is going to take a while. She didn't sit. She stood there, arms crossed, glaring at me. Fine. Stand. I spread the documents across her coffee table, methodically, one by one. Let me explain exactly what I own so there's no confusion. I pointed to each as I spoke. This is your mortgage, not the original lender, me. I bought your debt 18 months ago. Every missed payment, every late fee, every penalty, it all goes to me. Lexi was pale, getting paler. This is your credit card debt, all 4 cards, $63,000. I own them. How is that even? These are your car loans, both vehicles, the BMW and the Range Rover. I smiled. They will be repossessed on Friday. You should probably start thinking about public transportation. Victoria, please. And this, I held up the final document. This is your husband's business loan. The one he took out 5 years ago. The one he never told you about. Lexi's eyes went to the hallway, to the closed door of Derek's office where he was probably hiding. He borrowed $250,000. It's worth $312,000 now with interest. I set the document down, and I've owned it for 2 years. You've owned it since when? Since 2 years ago, when I found out your perfect husband was drowning in secret debt. She looked like she might be sick. Derek, her voice was shrill. Derek, get out here. A long pause. Then the office door opened. Derek emerged looking like a man walking to his own execution. Lexi, I can explain. You took out a loan for $250,000 and you didn't tell me. The business was failing. I thought I could fix it. You thought? Lexi's voice cracked. While I was planning Emma's birthday parties and buying cars and living our life, you were hiding $250,000 in debt. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I watched them. The golden couple, the perfect marriage, falling apart in front of my eyes. Every single penny. I let the words hang in the air. Your house, your cars, your credit, your husband's failures, all of it. Mine. Lexi turned to me. Her face was a mask of fury and despair. What do you want? Is this about money? I can get you money. With what you have nothing, Lexi. You have less than nothing. Mother will help. She has money. Does she? I tilted my head. Are you sure about that? Something flickered in Lexi's eyes. Doubt. Derek stood in the corner, frozen. Unable to speak. Unable to defend himself. The man who had hidden $250,000 in debt while his wife threw elaborate parties and bought designer handbags. "You know what the funny part is," I said. "All those years you looked down on me, called my job boring, called me practical, called me less than." I gestured at the documents on the table. And the whole time the boring little numbers girl was watching, learning, waiting. "Victoria, please," Lexi's voice cracked. "I know I wasn't always kind. I know I said things I shouldn't have. But we're family. We grew up together. That has to mean something. Does it? Did it mean something when you told Sophie to help the servants? Did it mean something when you called my work boring in front of all your friends? Did it mean something every single time you made me feel like I was less than you?" Lexi was crying now, mascara running down her perfect face. I'm sorry, okay, I was wrong. I'll do better. I'll change." "It's too late for that." I stood up. 34 years too late. I walked toward the door. "Victoria, wait." Lexi's voice was pleading now, desperate. "We're family, we're sisters." I turned back to look at her. At the woman who had tormented me my entire childhood. At the golden girl who always got everything while I got nothing. "No, we're not." The truth of those words hit both of us at the same time. Lexi didn't know yet. Didn't know about Elena. Didn't know we shared only half our blood. But she would. Soon enough she would know everything. I left her standing in her perfect living room, surrounded by her perfect things, watching her perfect life crumble to dust. I was almost to my car when Derek caught up with me. "Victoria, please." He was breathing hard, sweating. "I need to talk to you." I think I've said everything I needed to say. Not about the debt, about something else. He glanced back at the house. "Not here. Can we meet somewhere tonight?" "Why would I do that?" "Because I have information. About Margaret. About things you don't know." His eyes were desperate. "Please, just hear me out." I studied him. Derek had always been weak, always taking the easy path, always looking for someone else to solve his problems. But desperate men sometimes told the truth. "Tonight," I said, 8 o'clock my house. Thank you, Victoria." I got in my car and drove away. Marcus was waiting when I got home. "How did it go?" "She's destroyed. Derek, too." I sat down heavily. "But something's wrong. Derek wants to meet tonight. Says he has information about Margaret." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. "I think I know what he wants to tell you." I looked at the folder. Thick, full of documents. "What is that?" "I've been investigating," he said. "For weeks. Since I realized what you were planning, I started digging, making calls, using my contacts. The late nights, the secret phone calls." He nodded. "I wanted to be sure before I told you. I didn't want to get your hopes up if I was wrong." "About what?" "About Derek. About where his money problems really started. About why Margaret has been making mysterious cash withdrawals for 3 years." He handed me the folder. "I'm a corporate lawyer," he said. "I know how to follow money, and this money—" He tapped the folder. "This money tells a story." I opened it. Bank statements. Margaret's bank statements. Showing large cash withdrawals. 20,000 here, 15,000 there, every month for 3 years. Where is this money going? That's what I couldn't figure out at first. Margaret doesn't have expensive habits. No gambling, no secret boyfriend, no investments that would require cash. So where? I found it last week. A pattern. Every withdrawal matches a deposit in an account registered to a shell company owned by Derek Morrison. The words hit me like a wall. Derek is blackmailing Margaret. Has been for 3 years. Since right after your father's funeral. I stared at the documents, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. But why? What does Derek have on Margaret? That's what I'm hoping he'll tell us tonight. Derek arrived at 8 o'clock exactly. He looked terrible. Pale, haggard, like a man who hadn't slept in days. Marcus and I were waiting in the living room. I had sent Sophie to stay with a friend for the night. I didn't want her to hear what was coming. "Sit down," I said. Derek sat, his hands were shaking. "Before you say anything," Marcus said, "I want you to know that I've already traced the money. I know about the payments from Margaret. I know about the shell company." Derek went even paler. "I was going to tell you. That's why I'm here." "Then tell us," I said, "everything." He took a deep breath. 3 years ago, he said. "Right after your father's funeral, I was helping Margaret clear out his study. She asked me to sort through files, find anything related to the business." He paused, swallowed. "I found things she didn't want anyone to see. Hidden in a drawer that wasn't locked properly. Birth certificates, custody papers, letters about a woman named Elena. My heart was pounding. And you blackmailed her. I didn't mean to. His face crumpled. I was desperate. My business had already failed by then. I was in debt up to my eyeballs. I thought if I asked Margaret for a loan just as family, she'd help. But she said no. She laughed at me, told me to figure out my own problems, told me I wasn't really family, just someone who married into it. His voice was bitter. So I mentioned what I'd found, hinted that it would be unfortunate if anyone else discovered it. She paid you. That same day, cash, $200,000, just to keep quiet. I felt sick. $200,000, the price of my identity. And she's been paying you ever since. Derek nodded miserably. Monthly, smaller amounts, 10 to 20,000. She calls it investment returns, but we both know what it is. 3 years. My voice was flat. For 3 years, you've been blackmailing my mother about my true identity. And for 3 years, she's been paying to keep me in the dark. I'm sorry, Victoria. I know it's not enough, but I'm sorry. Where did she get the money? Derek hesitated. Tell me. From the charity, the Lawson Family Foundation. He couldn't meet my eyes. She's been embezzling from her own charity for 3 years, redirecting donations to personal accounts, using the foundation as her personal piggy bank. The room was silent. Margaret, the perfect society matron, the pillar of the community, embezzling from a charity to pay blackmail money. There's more? Derek said quietly. More. The documents I found. The ones about you. There was something else in that drawer. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. I made copies before Margaret took everything. I've been holding on to them. Insurance in case she ever stopped paying. He handed me the envelope. Inside were documents I had never seen before. Legal papers, court filings, dated 34 years ago. What is this? Read them. I did. And then I understood everything. The papers were from a custody case, filed 34 years ago. Rosa Vasquez versus Margaret Lawson. Rosa had fought. She had actually fought for me. I read through the documents slowly, my hands trembling. Page after page of legal filings, motions, responses, evidence submissions. According to the documents, Rosa had hired a lawyer within days of signing Margaret's papers. She had regretted it immediately. Had realized she had been tricked, threatened, bullied into giving me up. The lawyer was a young public defender working pro bono. A woman named Jennifer Chen, who had taken Rosa's case because she believed in it, because she saw what Margaret had done. Rosa had filed for custody of her sister's child. She had submitted evidence. Elena's last will naming Rosa as guardian. Testimony from nurses who had been there when Elena died and heard her beg James to let Rosa raise her baby. Letters Elena had written during her pregnancy making her wishes clear. And Margaret had crushed her. Margaret's lawyers, 3 of them from a prestigious firm, had buried Rosa in paperwork. They delayed hearings, filed motions, submitted briefs challenging every piece of evidence Rosa presented. They questioned Rosa's fitness as a parent, cited her income as a waitress, called her apartment too small, said she worked too many hours to properly care for a child. They questioned her immigration status even though she was born in Newark, forcing her to produce birth certificates and citizenship documents. They questioned her character, digging up a speeding ticket from 3 years earlier as evidence of recklessness. They made her life hell for 8 months. 8 months of Rosa fighting with everything she had, taking time off work she couldn't afford, borrowing money for court fees, showing up to every hearing in her best dress hoping this time would be different. And then the case was dismissed. Not decided on its merits. Dismissed. On a technicality. Some paperwork filed 1 day late by Jennifer Chen, who was handling 40 other cases at the time, and made a mistake. Case closed. Victoria Lawson remains in the custody of James and Margaret Lawson. I found a handwritten note clipped to the final document. Jennifer Chen's handwriting from the look of it. I'm so sorry, Rosa. I failed you. I filed the response on the 31st instead of the 30th. 1 day. 1 day late, and they threw out everything. They were looking for any excuse, and I gave them one. I will never forgive myself. Rosa had tried. She had tried so hard. And Margaret had used every dirty trick, every expensive lawyer, every ounce of her privilege to stop her. I didn't know, I said. My voice was barely a whisper. I didn't know she fought. Margaret made sure no one knew. Derek's voice was quiet. She had all the records sealed, paid the court clerk to lose the files. By the time I found these papers in James's drawer, everyone involved had either died or moved away. Jennifer Chen passed away 5 years ago. The judge retired to Florida. I looked at the documents in my hands. 34 years of lies. 34 years of being told I was unwanted when someone had fought for me with everything she had. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked Derek. "Why now?" "Because I'm tired." He looked older than I had ever seen him. Broken. "I'm tired of lying. Tired of pretending. Tired of being complicit in what Margaret did to you." He paused. "And because I'm going to lose everything anyway. The house, the cars, my marriage. What's the point of keeping secrets when you have nothing left to protect?" I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Get out of my house," I said. My voice was ice. "And don't tell anyone about this conversation. Not Lexi, not Margaret, no one." "I won't, I swear." He fled like the coward he was. Marcus and I sat in the silence he left behind. All the documents were spread across the coffee table. Derek's confession, Margaret's bank records, the custody papers, Rosa's fight. 34 years of secrets finally exposed. "What are you going to do?" Marcus asked quietly. I looked at the evidence. The blackmail, the embezzlement, the lies that stretched back to the day I was born. Margaret thinks she's been protecting a secret. She thinks if she buries me in threats, I'll back down. I met my husband's eyes. She doesn't know that I just got the key to her entire house of cards. "The question is whether you're going to use it." I touched the folder, the proof of everything Margaret had done, the ammunition I needed to destroy her completely. "I'm going to finish what I started." And Rosa, the custody fight? I thought about my aunt. The woman who had hired a lawyer on a waitress's salary, who had fought for 8 months against impossible odds, who had never stopped looking for me even after she lost. "I'm going to tell her." My voice was thick. "I'm going to tell her that I know she fought, that I know it wasn't her fault." Marcus reached over and took my hand. "You're not just fighting for revenge anymore, are you?" "No." I looked at the documents, Rosa's documents, the proof of a love that had never stopped. "I'm fighting for the truth, and I'm fighting for the family I should have had all along." The night was quiet. Sophie was at her friend's house, safe and unknowing. The documents were spread across the table like pieces of a puzzle finally coming together. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "Tomorrow, I start building the case. Everything Derek told us, everything in these documents. Margaret's embezzlement, the custody fight she buried, the blackmail she's been paying." I gathered the papers carefully. She thought she could threaten me into silence. She thought I would back down like Rosa did 34 years ago. "But you're not backing down." "No." I looked at my husband, at the man who had stood by me through all of this, who had investigated in secret because he wanted to protect me, who had never once told me I was going too far. "I'm not Rosa. I'm not a scared 22-year-old with nothing. I have money. I have evidence. I have a husband who happens to be a very good lawyer." Marcus smiled. "The best. And I have something Margaret never expected me to have." "What's that?" "The truth." I touched the custody documents. Rosa's 8-month fight. The paperwork filed 1 day late. The case that should have changed everything. She buried this for 34 years. She thought it was gone forever. But secrets have a way of coming out. And when this one comes out, I thought about Margaret, about her charity events and her society friends and her reputation as the perfect matriarch, about everything she had built on a foundation of lies and stolen children. When this one comes out, she loses everything, just like she made Rosa lose everything 34 years ago. Marcus nodded slowly. "Then we do it right. Every document, every piece of evidence, every word of testimony. We build a case so solid she can't deny it, can't explain it away, can't buy her way out of it. We do it right," I agreed, "and then we let the truth speak for itself." I looked out the window at the dark sky. Somewhere out there Rosa was waiting. My aunt, my family, the woman who had never stopped looking for me. Somewhere out there, Margaret was sleeping in her mansion confident that her secrets were safe. She was wrong. The reckoning was coming, and this time nothing would stop it. The counterattack came on Wednesday. I was at my desk trying to focus on work when my boss Tom appeared in my doorway. His face was grim. "Victoria, my office, now." I followed him down the hall, my stomach sinking with every step. I knew this was coming. I just hadn't expected it so soon. Tom closed the door behind us. "I received a letter this morning from a lawyer named Richard Blackwell." He sat down heavily. "He's making some serious allegations. Let me guess, conflict of interest, misuse of company resources, personal vendetta disguised as legitimate business." Tom's eyebrows rose. "You knew this was coming." "I knew my sister would fight back, I just didn't know how." "Your sister?" Tom leaned back in his chair. Alexandra Morrison, the woman whose debt portfolio you've been quietly acquiring for 2 years. Everything I did was legal, Tom. Every purchase went through proper channels. I followed every protocol. I believe you. But that's not the point. He rubbed his forehead. The point is, Blackwell is demanding an investigation. He's threatening to go to the SEC if we don't take action. My mind went blank. The SEC, they were escalating. What kind of action? Administrative leave, pending a full internal review. Tom looked genuinely sorry. I'm sorry, Victoria. My hands are tied. If I don't do this, they'll claim we covered for you. For how long? 2 weeks, maybe more, until legal clears you. I nodded slowly. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of sitting at home while my reputation was dragged through the mud. 2 weeks of Lexi and Margaret thinking they had won. I understand. For what it's worth, Tom said as I stood to leave. I don't believe their accusations. You're one of the best analysts I've ever had, but right now the optics are bad. I know. I paused at the door. Thank you for being honest with me. I cleaned out my desk and went home. The house was quiet when I arrived. Sophie was at school. Marcus was at work. I sat in the living room and stared at the wall trying to process what had just happened. 2 years of planning, 2 years of patience, and now it was all unraveling. My phone buzzed. A video from Patricia. No message, just a link. I clicked it. The video showed Lexi's driveway. Her beautiful circular driveway with the imported Italian pavers. 2 men in uniforms were hooking her BMW to a tow truck. And there was Lexi, running out of the house in her bathrobe mascara, already running screaming at the men to stop. Derek was behind her trying to pull her back, looking like he wanted to disappear into the ground. The neighbors were watching. I could see them on their porches and their windows, witnessing the fall of the neighborhood's golden couple. The video lasted 3 minutes. 3 minutes of Lexi's perfect life being dragged away on the back of a truck. I should have felt satisfaction. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? This was justice. But all I felt was empty. Everything felt hollow. I closed the video and put down my phone. Was this really what victory looked like? The phone call from Margaret came that afternoon. I almost didn't answer. But something in me wanted to hear what she had to say. Wanted to face her, even if only through a phone line. Victoria, her voice was ice. I hope you're proud of yourself. What do you want, Margaret? To offer you one last chance. Walk away from this madness. Drop your claims against Alexandra. Let things go back to normal. Normal. I laughed. It was a bitter sound. There is no normal. There never was. You're destroying this family. This family was destroyed long before I did anything. You made sure of that. Silence on the line. Then Margaret's voice changed. Quieter. More dangerous. You think I kept you out of cruelty? You think I raised you because your father forced me to? Didn't you? I saved you, Victoria. The words stopped me cold. What are you talking about? Elena's family did not want you. Her sister Rosa, she refused to take you, called you the product of sin, of adultery, of shame. Margaret's voice was sharp with old bitterness. She wanted you put in the foster system, wanted nothing to do with her sister's bastard child. I couldn't speak. The floor shifted beneath me. I took you in when no one else would. I gave you a home, a family, a name. And this is how you repay me. You're lying. Am I? Ask yourself this, Victoria. If Rosa wanted you so badly, why didn't she ever come looking? In 34 years, why hasn't your precious real family ever reached out? She hung up. I sat there with her words echoing in my skull. Rosa didn't want me. Elena's family rejected me. Was that true? Or was Margaret just trying to twist the narrative? But the question haunted me. I had spoken to Rosa just days ago. She had seemed so warm, so welcoming, so eager to meet me. Was it an act? Had she reached out now only because she wanted something? I thought about our phone call, about her tears, about how she said she had been looking for me for 34 years. But Margaret's voice kept whispering. If she wanted you, where was she? All those years, where was she? I didn't know what to believe anymore. Thursday brought more bad news. Lexi's lawyer Blackwell called me directly. His voice was smooth, professional, terrifying. Mrs. Hartley, I wanted to give you a courtesy call before we proceed. Proceed with what? We have concerns about the environment your child is being raised in. My jaw tightened. You leave my daughter out of this. Mrs. Hartley, a woman who systematically destroys her own family, who lies to her employer, who manipulates financial systems for personal revenge. What kind of home is that for a 7-year-old? You don't know anything about my home. I know enough, and CPS will know more after we file our report. I gripped the phone so hard my fingers went white. If you go near my daughter, it's not about going near her. It's about raising questions, about opening investigations, about making your life so complicated that you won't have time to continue your little crusade. He paused. Let the silence stretch. Drop your campaign against the Morrison family. Walk away, or we make things very uncomfortable for you and your daughter. He hung up. I stood in my kitchen shaking. Sophie. They were threatening Sophie. And for the first time since this started, I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake. Friday. Sophie came home from school crying. I found her in her room, curled up on her bed, her face buried in her pillow. Sweetheart, what happened? She wouldn't look at me. Her small body shook with sobs. Sophie, please, talk to me. Finally she turned. Her eyes were red. Her face was blotchy. She looked devastated. The kids said you did bad things to Aunt Lexi. They said you're making her homeless. They said... She hiccuped. They said I should be ashamed of you. I sat down on the bed beside her. My heart was breaking. Sophie, they said you're a bully. She looked up at me with those big brown eyes that looked so much like Elena's. Are you a bully, Mommy? I opened my mouth to defend myself, to explain, to justify. Nothing came out, because I didn't know anymore. Was I a bully? I had set out to destroy my sister, to take everything she had, to make her feel as small and worthless as she had made me feel. Was that justice, or was it cruelty? Was there a difference? I don't know, baby, I whispered finally. I thought I was doing the right thing, but now, I don't know. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then she crawled into my lap and wrapped her small arms around my neck. I don't think you're a bully, she said softly. I think you're sad and hurt and trying to make the hurt stop. 7 years old. And she saw me more clearly than I saw myself. Maybe the hurt doesn't stop by hurting other people, she continued. Maybe it just makes more hurt. I held her tight and let the tears fall. When had my daughter become so wise? When had she learned things that I was still struggling to understand? Mommy, Sophie's voice was muffled against my shoulder. Yes, baby. If Aunt Lexi said sorry, really truly sorry, would you forgive her? I thought about that question. Thought about 34 years of cruelty. Thought about all the small cuts that had bled into one massive wound. I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know if sorry would be enough. But you'd listen if she tried. Maybe. I'd try to listen. Sophie nodded against my chest. That's good. My teacher says that's the first step. Listening. Your teacher is very smart. She said hurt people hurt people. And the only way to stop is for someone to choose to be kind first. Sophie looked up at me. Maybe you could be the one who's kind first, Mommy. Maybe then everyone would stop hurting. I didn't know how to respond to that. Didn't know if I had the strength to be kind to people who had been cruel to me my whole life. But Sophie's words planted a seed, a tiny seed of doubt about the path I was on. I love you, Sophie. I love you too, Mommy. We sat there together as the afternoon light faded. Mother and daughter. 2 broken hearts trying to find their way. Saturday was supposed to be the day I met Rosa, but I couldn't go. Margaret's words kept echoing in my head. Rosa didn't want you. She rejected you. Called you the product of sin. What if it was true? What if Rosa had only reached out now because she wanted something? Money, maybe? Or revenge against Margaret? Or some other agenda I couldn't see? I texted Rosa that morning. Something came up. Can we reschedule? Her response came quickly. Of course. Whenever you're ready. I've waited 34 years. I can wait a little longer. I stared at the message. Was that patience or was it guilt? I didn't know. I didn't know anything anymore. Marcus found me in the living room that evening, staring at nothing. Victoria, are you okay? No. My voice was hollow. I'm not okay. He sat down beside me close but not touching, giving me space but letting me know he was there. Tell me. So I told him. About Blackwell's threats, about Sophie's question, about Margaret's claim that Rosa had rejected me, about the car repossession video and how empty it made me feel, about everything. He listened without interrupting. That was one of the things I loved about Marcus. He never rushed to fix things. He listened first. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. That's a lot, he said finally. That's a lot for 1 week. I know. And the CPS threat, that's real. Real enough. Blackwell is ruthless. He'll do whatever it takes to protect his clients. He can't actually take Sophie. You haven't done anything wrong. I know that. You know that. But do you know what a CPS investigation does? Even a baseless one? I shook my head. It creates records. It raises questions. It follows you forever. Even if they close it, the stigma remains. Marcus's jaw tightened. We could fight it. I know lawyers who specialize in this kind of thing. And spend how long? How much money? How much of Sophie's childhood tied up in court? I put my head in my hands. This was supposed to be simple. Expose their lies, take what they owed, walk away. But it's not simple. No, it's not. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky turned orange, then pink, then purple. Do you believe her? Marcus asked finally. Margaret about Rosa. I looked at my hands. I don't know. She's lied about everything else. Why would she tell the truth about this? Then why are you letting her words get to you? I thought about that question. Really thought about it. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You know what I think, he said finally. I think Margaret is a master manipulator. I think she knows exactly which buttons to push. And I think she's trying to make you doubt yourself because she's scared. Scared of what? Scared that you're winning. Scared that her secrets are coming out. Scared that for the first time in 34 years, someone is fighting back. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that Margaret was lying, that Rosa was real, that there was a family out there who actually wanted me. But the doubt was too strong. The years of being told I was worthless had left their mark. And now when someone offered me love, I couldn't trust it. Maybe I was too broken to trust anything anymore. That night after Marcus went to bed, I sat alone in the darkness. The house was silent. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway, a clock that had been a wedding gift from Margaret. Even her presence haunted this house. I walked to the window and stared out at the empty street. Somewhere out there, Lexi was probably crying herself to sleep in a house she was about to lose. Derek was probably planning his escape. Margaret was probably scheming her next move. And here I was, the woman who had started all of this, sitting alone in the dark, wondering if she had made a terrible mistake. The doubts crowded in like shadows. What if Margaret was right? What if Rosa never wanted me? What if I was the villain? The bitter, jealous sister who couldn't let go of old wounds. The woman so consumed by revenge that she couldn't see she was becoming the monster she fought against. What if I had become exactly what I hated? I thought about Lexi's face when I revealed I owned her debt. The terror. The devastation. The way her whole world crumbled in her eyes. I had wanted that. I had planned for that. I had spent 2 years dreaming of that exact moment. But now that it had happened, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like something else. Something darker. I thought about Sophie's question. Are you a bully, Mommy? I thought about her face when she asked it. The confusion, the hurt, the desperate hope that I would say no, that her mother was still the person she believed in. And I couldn't give her that. I couldn't tell her no, because I wasn't sure anymore. I thought about the CPS threat, the possibility of losing Sophie, the one person who mattered more than revenge, more than justice, more than anything. Was it worth it? All of this pain, all of this destruction. Was it worth risking my daughter? I walked back to the couch and sat down heavily. My phone was on the coffee table. Patricia's name glowed on the screen from her earlier message. Maybe I should stop. Maybe I should walk away. Let the foreclosure proceed on its own. Let time and karma do their work. Let Sophie grow up with a mother who wasn't consumed by hatred. But then I remembered. Sophie at the party. Frozen, humiliated, told she belonged with the servants. I remembered my own childhood, the piano competition, the third-place ribbon. Victoria put it in your room. My mother's voice cold and dismissive, refusing to celebrate because it might make Lexi feel bad. I remembered the birthdays, Lexi's parties with 100 guests and live music, mine with pizza and just our parents, Margaret, checking her watch every 5 minutes. I remembered graduating valedictorian, standing at the podium giving the speech I had worked so hard for. And my mother in the audience checking her phone, not even looking at me. The servants could use some help. You seem more suited for that kind of thing. No, I didn't start this war. They did. 34 years of cruelty. 34 years of making me feel worthless. 34 years of treating me like a burden, a mistake, an inconvenience. I was just finally fighting back. But fighting back was hard. Harder than I had imagined. And tonight in the darkness, I wasn't sure I had the strength to continue. I picked up my phone. Opened the text thread with Patricia. Maybe it's time to end this, I typed. Maybe I should just let it go. I stared at the message. My finger hovered over the send button. And then my phone buzzed. A new text. From Rosa. Victoria. I know something is wrong. I can feel it. Whatever Margaret told you about me, it's not true. She's been lying about me for 34 years. Please don't let her win now. I have documents. Letters. Proof of everything she did. Everything she said about me is a lie. I fought for you. For 8 months I fought for you in court. Margaret's lawyers crushed me. But I never stopped looking. Never stopped hoping. Please, give me a chance to tell you the truth. Give me a chance to show you who I really am. I love you, Victoria. I've loved you since the day you were born. Nothing Margaret says can change that. I stared at the screen, tears streaming down my face. Rosa had fought for me, just like Derek's documents said. For 8 months she had fought. Margaret had lied. Of course she had lied. That's what Margaret did. I deleted the message to Patricia, typed a new one to Rosa. Tomorrow, same coffee shop, I'll be there. Her response came immediately. I'll be there too. I've been waiting 34 years for this. I held the phone to my chest and for the first time in days let myself hope. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. Maybe there was another truth, another story. Maybe tomorrow everything would change again. Sunday morning, the coffee shop in Newark. I arrived 30 minutes early. Sat in a corner booth with my back to the wall watching the door. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Rosa had sent me a photo so I would recognize her. A woman in her mid-50s with dark hair streaked with silver, warm brown eyes and a smile that looked achingly familiar. She looked like me. Or I looked like her. The same eyes, the same cheekbones, the same way of tilting her head. Family. The door opened at exactly 10 o'clock. And there she was, Rosa Vasquez Miller. My aunt. My mother's sister. The woman who had searched for me for 34 years. She spotted me immediately. For a moment, she just stood there, one hand pressed to her heart, tears already streaming down her face. Then she walked toward me, slowly, like she was afraid I might disappear. Victoria. She said my name like a prayer, like something precious finally within reach. I stood up. Rosa. She pulled me into a hug, tight, fierce, like she was holding on to something she had waited her whole life for. I found you, she whispered into my hair. After all this time, I finally found you. We sat across from each other, coffee untouched, just looking. You look just like her, Rosa said softly. Just like Elena. The same eyes, the same face. She reached out and touched my cheek. She would be so proud of you. Tell me about her, please, tell me everything. So Rosa did. She told me about their childhood in Newark. 2 sisters 3 years apart, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table. They had nothing, but they had each other. Elena was my hero, Rosa said. 3 years older, but she acted like she was 10 years older. She protected me from everything. Bullies at school. Our mother's boyfriends who sometimes got too rough. The landlords who came knocking when we couldn't pay rent. She told me about Elena's dream of becoming a nurse. How she worked nights at a diner to pay for nursing school. How she studied in the kitchen while Rosa did homework beside her. How she graduated top of her class despite everything. She was so proud, Rosa said. The first person in our family to finish college. Our mother cried at the graduation. Good tears for once. She told me about James. How Elena met him at the hospital, a wealthy businessman who had come in for heart palpitations. How he kept coming back, scheduling unnecessary appointments just to see her. She knew it was wrong, Rosa said. She knew he was married. She tried to stay away. For months she tried. But he was persistent, and he was kind, and he looked at her like she was the most important person in the world. Did she love him? With everything she had. Rosa's eyes were distant remembering. I warned her. Told her it would only end in pain. Told her married men don't leave their wives, not really. But she said when she was with him she felt alive for the first time in her life. She said she would rather have a piece of him than all of anyone else. And when she found out she was pregnant, she was terrified at first. Called me crying at 3 a.m, but by the time I got to her apartment... Rosa smiled through her tears. She was happy, Victoria. So happy. She said you were the best thing that ever happened to her. That no matter what came next, she would never regret you. Even though it was complicated. Even though she knew she would have to raise you alone. Even though James couldn't leave his wife. Rosa reached across the table and took my hand. She didn't care about any of that. She only cared about you. From the moment she knew you existed, you were her whole world. Margaret told me something, I said carefully. She said you didn't want me. That you called me the product of sin. That you wanted me put in foster care. Rosa's face went hard, harder than I had seen it. She said that yesterday on the phone. Victoria. Rosa took both my hands. Her grip was fierce. I fought for you. I begged. I showed up at their house 3 times. The first time they called the police. The second time Margaret's lawyers met me at the door with a restraining order. The third time, She paused, steadied herself. The third time Margaret came to my apartment with 2 men. They showed me photographs of me, walking to work, at the grocery store, outside my building. They had been following me for weeks. She had you surveilled. She said if I ever tried to contact you again, she would destroy me, file false charges, claim I was stalking, get me arrested, deported. Rosa's voice shook with old rage. My family had only been citizens for 1 generation. She knew that scared me. She used it. What did you do? What could I do? I was 22 years old. I made minimum wage. I had no lawyers, no money, no power. Rosa's eyes were bright with tears. She made me sign papers, gave me money I didn't want, and then she told me to disappear, that you would have a better life without me, that I should forget you ever existed. But you didn't forget. Not for 1 single day. Rosa squeezed my hands. Every birthday I lit a candle. Every Christmas I bought you a present and kept it hoping that someday. Her voice broke. I have a room, she said, in my house, full of birthday presents, 34 of them, all wrapped, all waiting. I never stopped believing I would find you. Something broke inside me. 34 years of lies. 34 presents wrapped and waiting. A love that never gave up even when there was no hope. You were never unwanted, Victoria. You were stolen. And I have spent 34 years waiting to get you back. Rosa reached into her bag and pulled out a worn leather folder. I brought everything, every document I saved, every letter, every piece of evidence. She spread them across the table. Letters from Margaret's lawyers threatening legal action. Surveillance photos of Rosa from 34 years ago. Court documents from the custody case that was dismissed on a technicality. And something else. A stack of letters in Elena's handwriting, yellowed with age, carefully preserved in plastic sleeves. These are the letters Elena wrote to you before you were born, Rosa said. She wrote one every week, talking to you, telling you about her day, making plans for your future. I picked up the first letter with trembling hands. My darling baby, it began. Today I felt you kick for the first time. Just a flutter like butterfly wings. But I knew it was you, my little miracle. I can't wait to meet you. I can't wait to hold you in my arms and tell you how much I love you. I read through the letters one by one, pages and pages of a mother talking to her unborn child. Week 12. I bought your first outfit today. A tiny yellow dress with ducks on it. Rosa says yellow is for when you don't know if it's a boy or a girl, but I know. I know you're a girl. I can feel it. My little Victoria. Week 18. Your father came to see me today. He brought flowers and cried when he felt you kick. I know he can't be with us the way I wish he could. But he loves you. In his way, he loves you. Week 24. The doctors say I need to be careful. Something about my blood pressure. But I'm not worried. You're strong. I can feel it. You're going to be fine. We both are. Week 30. Not long now, little one. Just a few more weeks. I've been setting up your nursery. Rosa helped me paint it. Yellow walls with white trim. There's a mobile with stars and moons that plays a lullaby. I sit in there sometimes in the rocking chair and I imagine holding you, singing to you, watching you sleep. The last letter was dated the day before I was born. My darling Victoria, tomorrow is the day. I'm scared. I won't lie to you about that. The doctors say there might be complications. But whatever happens, I want you to know this. I would do it all again. Every moment. Every complication. Every fear. Because you are worth it. You are worth everything. I love you, my daughter. To the stars and back, forever. Your mother, Elena, she wanted to name you Victoria, Rosa said. For victory. Because you were her victory. Her proof that something beautiful could come from something complicated. I was crying now. Couldn't help it. Tears streaming down my face, dripping onto the letters, onto the table, onto my hands. She loved you so much, Victoria. More than anything in this world. And it broke my heart that you never got to know that. That Margaret kept this from you. That you grew up believing you were unwanted when you were the most wanted baby in the world. Rosa reached into her bag again and pulled out a small velvet case. Elena bought this when she found out she was pregnant. She wanted to give it to you on your first birthday. I opened the case. Inside was a delicate gold chain, and hanging from it a pendant shaped like a crescent moon. For our family birthmark, Rosa explained. Elena had a matching one. She wore it every day until she died. I lifted the necklace. The gold caught the light warm and beautiful. She never got to give it to you, Rosa said softly. So I'm giving it to you now. 34 years late, but still from her, still with all her love. I put it on with trembling hands. The pendant settled against my chest, cool metal warming to my skin. I was wearing my mother's necklace, my real mother, the woman who had wanted me, who had loved me, who had died so I could live. Thank you, I whispered, for keeping this, for waiting, for never giving up. Rosa pulled me into a hug. Welcome home, mija, finally. We talked for hours. Rosa told me about her life, her marriage to a good man named Carlos who had died 5 years ago. Her 2 children, my cousins, who were eager to meet me. The life she had built while never stopping her search. She told me about the DNA test, how she had submitted her sample years ago hoping against hope, how 3 weeks ago she had gotten a match, first cousin or closer, Victoria Hartley. I almost didn't believe it, she said. After all this time, I thought it must be a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. No, she smiled through her tears. It wasn't. I told her about my life too, about Marcus and Sophie, about growing up feeling invisible in my own family, about the revenge I had planned and executed against Lexi. Rosa listened without judgment. Margaret made you feel worthless, she said when I finished. She stole you and then punished you for existing, what you did to Lexi. She shrugged. I understand. I might have done the same. But the question is, what comes next? Do you keep fighting, keep destroying, or do you find a way to let go? I thought about that, about Sophie's question, about the CPS threats, about everything I had set in motion. I don't know if I can let go, I admitted. Not yet. Margaret is still out there, still lying, still pretending to be the victim. Then don't let go. Rosa's voice was firm. Finish it. Expose her. Make sure everyone knows the truth. She took my hand. But when it's over, Victoria, let it be over. Don't spend your whole life fighting ghosts. Trust me, I know what that does to a person. Monday morning I sat down with Marcus to organize everything. The table was covered in documents. Derek's confession, Margaret's bank records, Rosa's custody papers, Elena's letters, the surveillance photos. 34 years of evidence finally assembled. This is enough, Marcus said. More than enough. We could destroy her with half of this. I don't want to destroy her. I want her to choose. Choose what? Her reputation or her war? I pulled out a blank piece of paper. I'm going to give her a chance to walk away. One chance. If she takes it, this all stays buried. If she doesn't, then you release everything. Then I release everything. Marcus nodded slowly. And if she calls your bluff, it's not a bluff. I looked at the evidence spread across the table. I'm done being afraid of her. I'm done letting her control the narrative. This ends, one way or another. I wrote the letter carefully. Every word precise, every sentence deliberate. Dear Margaret, I know about the blackmail payments to Derek. I have the bank records showing 3 years of cash withdrawals that match deposits into his shell company. I know about the embezzlement from the Lawson Family Foundation. I have the documentation showing you redirected charitable donations to personal accounts. I know about how you obtained custody of me. I have Rosa's documents. I have your letters threatening her. I have 34 years of evidence proving you committed fraud and coercion to steal me from my family. You have been lying to me my entire life. You told me Rosa did not want me. You told me I was a burden you graciously agreed to bear. The truth is, you threatened a grieving young woman, forced her to sign away her rights, and then spent 3 decades pretending you were a saint. Here is what is going to happen next. You have 48 hours to make a decision. Option 1. You call off everything. Drop all threats against me. Make Lexi's lawyers back down. Make the SEC complaint go away. Cancel any plans involving CPS and my daughter. You never contact me or Sophie again. In exchange, I keep your secrets. No one ever has to know what you did. Option 2. You refuse. And I release everything. To the police, to the press, to every charity board, every country club, every social circle you have spent your life trying to impress. Everyone will know what kind of woman you really are. You have until Thursday at noon. Choose wisely, Mother. Victoria. Marcus delivered the letter personally on Tuesday morning. I watched from the window as his car disappeared down the street. In his briefcase was a manila envelope containing the ultimatum, along with copies of just enough evidence to prove I wasn't bluffing. Now all I could do was wait. I touched the crescent moon necklace at my throat. Elena's gift. My mother's love finally reaching me after 34 years. What do you think she'll do? I had asked Marcus before he left. I think Margaret Lawson has never surrendered in her life. I think she'll see this as a challenge. And I think she'll convince herself she can win. And if she's wrong, then she loses everything. He had kissed my forehead. And you finally get to stop fighting. I hoped he was right. Hoped this would be the end. Hoped that after 34 years of lies and 34 years of searching and 2 years of planning revenge, there could finally be peace. But I knew Margaret. I knew how she thought. I knew she would never admit defeat. So I prepared for war. Tuesday evening, Rosa called. How are you holding up? Waiting. It's the hardest part. I know. She paused. Victoria, whatever happens, I want you to know I'm proud of you. For standing up. For fighting back. Elena would be proud too. I wish she could be here. She is. Rosa's voice was soft. She's in you. In your strength. In your courage. Every time you refuse to back down, that's her. Every time you fight for the people you love, that's her. I looked down at the necklace, the crescent moon catching the light. Thank you, Rosa, for everything. That's what family is for Mija. We show up, always. Wednesday passed in agonizing slowness. I cleaned the house, helped Sophie with homework, made dinner, pretended everything was normal. Sophie noticed the necklace at some point. That's pretty, Mommy. Where did you get it? From someone special, someone who loved me before I was even born. Like a fairy godmother. I smiled. Something like that. Sophie nodded seriously. It's like a moon. I like moons. They're there even when you can't see them. Out of the mouths of babes. Yes, I said. They are. Thursday morning. The deadline. I sat by my phone waiting. Marcus had taken the day off to be with me. Sophie was at school blissfully unaware. Noon came and went. No call, no message. 1 o'clock, nothing. 2 o'clock, still nothing. And then at 2:47 my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I know where you live. I know where your daughter goes to school. I know everything about you. Do your worst, Victoria. I will do mine. I stared at the screen, my jaw tightened. She had chosen war. I looked at Marcus. He had read the message over my shoulder. Well, he said quietly, I guess we have our answer. I guess we do. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the ordinary street, the ordinary houses, the ordinary life I had built. None of it would be ordinary after this. Call Patricia, I said. Tell her to prepare the release package. Everything. And call Tom at my office. Tell him I need to speak with him tomorrow. What are you going to do? I turned to face my husband, my partner, the man who had stood beside me through all of this. I'm going to throw a party. A party? A celebration. For Sophie's recovery from the bullying. That's the official reason. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I'm going to invite everyone. Lexi, Derek, all their society friends, and Margaret. You're going to confront her in public. I'm going to give her one last chance to do the right thing. In front of everyone she cares about impressing. I touched the necklace at my throat. And if she refuses, then everyone will know the truth. Right there. Right then. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Saturday, he said finally. We'll do it Saturday. That gives us 2 days to prepare. 2 days. Can you get Rosa here by then? I picked up my phone, started typing. She'll be here. She's been waiting 34 years for this. I stood at the window that night watching the stars. In 2 days, everything would change. Margaret would be exposed. The lies would end. The truth would finally come out. Or she would destroy me first. Those were the stakes. I touched the crescent moon necklace. Thought about Elena. About the mother I never knew. About the love that had been stolen from me. I'm going to finish this, I whispered to the darkness. For both of us. For all of us. Rosa was coming. The evidence was ready. The invitations would go out tomorrow. 48 hours until the reckoning. And this time I wasn't fighting alone. Friday morning, Rosa arrived. I picked her up at Newark Airport. Watched her walk through the arrivals gate, a small suitcase in one hand, a folder of documents in the other. She looked older than she had at the coffee shop. Tired, but determined. Thank you for coming, I said as I hugged her. You didn't have to do this. Yes, I did. She pulled back and looked at me. I've been waiting 34 years to tell the truth. To stand up and say what Margaret did to us. I wasn't going to miss this. We walked to the car in silence. The weight of what was coming pressed down on both of us. Are you ready for this? She asked as we drove. No, I glanced at her, but I'm doing it anyway. That's the Vasquez spirit, she smiled. Elena would be proud. I touched the crescent moon necklace at my throat. I hadn't taken it off since Rosa gave it to me. It had become my talisman. My connection to the mother I never knew. I hope so. Rosa was quiet for a moment, watching the New Jersey landscape roll past. You know, she said finally, I used to dream about this day. For years, I would imagine standing in front of Margaret and telling her exactly what I thought of her. making her pay for what she did. And now I'm terrified, she laughed softly. Funny, isn't it? I spent 34 years wanting this, and now that it's here, I'm scared. Me too. I reached over and squeezed her hand. But we're doing it together. That's what matters. Rosa looked out the window again. Elena used to say that. When things got hard, she'd say, as long as we're together, we can handle anything. She sounds like she was an amazing person. She was. She really was. Rosa wiped at her eyes. You would have loved her, Victoria. And she would have loved you so much. She already did even before you were born. That afternoon, Marcus and I finalized the party plans. We sat at the kitchen table surrounded by lists and timelines and contingency plans. This wasn't just a party, it was a military operation. The invitations had gone out Thursday night immediately after Margaret's rejection. A garden party at our home, Saturday at 3 o'clock. Celebrating Sophie's resilience after a difficult few weeks. That was the official story anyway. The guest list was carefully curated. Lexi and Derek, Margaret. The society friends who always attended Margaret's charity events. The neighbors who had witnessed Lexi's car being repossessed. A few journalists who covered local society news. Everyone who mattered would be there. Everyone who needed to hear the truth. What about Emma, Chloe, and Brandon? Marcus asked as we reviewed the final details. They shouldn't be there for this. I've already thought about that. I showed him the invitation. It says grown-up party at the bottom, adults only, and I made sure Derek knows to send the kids to his parents for the weekend. He agreed. He didn't have a choice, not if he wants to stay out of prison. Derek had been surprisingly cooperative since his confession. Fear does that to people. He had become almost pathetically eager to help, calling me with updates, asking if there was anything else I needed. The man who had blackmailed Margaret for 3 years was now desperate to stay on my good side. The children are innocent in all this, I continued. They don't need to watch their grandmother be exposed as a fraud. They'll learn the truth eventually, but not like this, not in public. Marcus nodded slowly. Good, that's the right call. It was the one mercy I was willing to show. The children would be spared the spectacle. Everyone else was fair game. What about the logistics? Marcus asked. The stage, the microphone. All arranged. The rental company is setting up tomorrow morning. Small stage at the east end of the garden. Microphone with speakers, everything we need. And if Margaret refuses to come, she'll come. I was certain of that. She can't resist. She'll want to see what I'm planning, want to try to stop it. Her ego won't let her stay away. And if she tries to leave once she realizes what's happening, I smiled. The garden gate locks from the inside. She's not going anywhere until I'm done. Marcus looked at me for a long moment. You've thought of everything. I've had 2 years to plan this. I wasn't going to leave anything to chance. Friday evening, Lexi called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Victoria, her voice was strained. I got your invitation. And, why are you doing this? What are you planning? It's a party, Lexi, a celebration. I thought you liked parties. Silence on the line. Then, I know you're planning something. Whatever it is, please. Don't do this in front of everyone. Don't humiliate us in public. Like you humiliated my daughter in front of everyone at Emma's party. That was different. Was it? I kept my voice calm. You told a 7-year-old she belonged with the servants. In front of 100 people. You made her feel worthless, invisible, less than. I said I was sorry. No, you didn't. You've never once apologized. Not to Sophie, not to me. You've just demanded that I forgive you without ever admitting you did anything wrong. Lexi was quiet for a long moment. If I apologize now, will you cancel whatever you're planning? It's too late for that, Lexi. It was too late the moment you involved my daughter. I hung up. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. Tomorrow it would all be over. Saturday dawned bright and clear. Perfect party weather. The garden looked beautiful. White tents, string lights ready to be turned on at dusk. Tables covered in white linen, a bar in the corner. A small stage at one end with a microphone stand. Everything was ready. Sophie came downstairs in her purple dress with the silver stars. The same dress she had worn to Emma's party. The dress she was wearing when Lexi told her to help the servants. Full circle. You look beautiful, sweetheart, I said. Thank you, Mommy. She twirled the dress spinning around her. I wanted to wear my favorite dress. It's perfect. Rosa emerged from the guest room dressed simply but elegantly in a navy blue dress. She looked nervous. Her hands were clasped tightly in front of her. Are you sure about this? She asked. Once we do this, there's no going back. There was never any going back. I took her hand. Not from the moment Margaret chose to fight instead of surrender. Then let's finish it. I hugged her, felt her trembling against me. 34 years of waiting, of hoping, of dreaming about this moment. And now, it was finally here. "Together," I said. "Together," she agreed. The guests began arriving at 3. I watched from the window as cars pulled up one after another. Mercedes, BMWs, Lexuses, the vehicles of the wealthy, the privileged, the people who had spent decades believing Margaret Lawson was a saint. Margaret's society friends came first. Women in designer dresses and careful makeup air-kissing each other as they walked through the garden gate. Men in blazers and loafers already heading for the bar. Then the charity board members. Serious-faced men and women who managed millions in donations, who believed they were supporting good causes, who had no idea their organization had been funding Margaret's blackmail payments. The neighbors trickled in next. The ones who had witnessed Lexi's car being repossessed, who had watched from their porches as the golden couple's facade crumbled. They came out of curiosity, sensing drama, hoping for a show. They would get one. The journalists arrived separately, local society reporters who covered charity galas and country club events. I had invited them specifically. What happened today would be news. I wanted it documented. Derek and Lexi arrived together at 3:30. They looked terrified. Good. Lexi was wearing too much makeup, probably trying to hide the dark circles under her eyes. Her dress was expensive, but last season. Things were already getting tight. Derek kept glancing around like a cornered animal looking for escape. His tie was crooked. His hands were shaking. I greeted them at the door with a smile. "So glad you could make it." "Victoria," Lexi's voice was barely above a whisper. "Please, whatever you're planning. Enjoy the party, Lexi. Have a drink. Relax." I stepped aside to let them in. The real entertainment starts later. They walked past me into the garden. I watched them huddled together near the back, whispering frantically, trying to figure out what was happening. Let them wonder. Let them sweat. The anticipation was part of the punishment. Margaret arrived last. Of course she did. Margaret always made an entrance. She swept into the garden at 3:45, dressed in cream-colored silk pearls gleaming at her throat. The picture of elegance. The society matriarch arriving to grace us with her presence. She didn't see Rosa yet. Rosa was inside the house, waiting. "Victoria." Margaret's voice was cold. "What is this about?" "It's a party, Mother. Can't a daughter throw a party?" "Don't play games with me. I know you're planning something." "Of course I am," I smiled pleasantly. "But why don't you get a drink first, mingle with your friends, enjoy the beautiful weather?" Margaret's eyes narrowed. She knew something was wrong. But she couldn't leave. Not without knowing what I was planning. Not without trying to stop it. Her ego wouldn't let her. I watched her walk into the garden, greeting her society friends with air kisses and false warmth. Watched her scan the crowd, looking for threats, looking for clues. She wouldn't find them. Not until I was ready. I walked to the small stage at the end of the garden, picked up the microphone. "Excuse me, everyone. Could I have your attention, please?" The crowd turned. Conversations died. 60 pairs of eyes fixed on me. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, but my voice was steady. "Thank you all for coming today. I know the invitation said this was a celebration for Sophie, and it is. But it's also something else. It's a chance for the truth to finally come out." I saw Margaret stiffen, saw Lexi grab Derek's arm. "For 34 years," I continued, "I believed I was the unwanted daughter, the burden, the mistake that Margaret Lawson graciously agreed to bear." I paused, let the words sink in. "That was a lie." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "The truth is that I was stolen, taken from my real family by a woman who couldn't stand the sight of me but couldn't bear the scandal of giving me up." "This is absurd," Margaret called out. Her voice was shrill. "She's making up stories to justify her vendetta against this family." "Am I?" I held up the folder I had been carrying. "Would you like me to read these letters, Margaret? The ones you wrote to my Aunt Rosa threatening to destroy her if she ever tried to contact me." I forgot how to breathe in that moment. The words hung in the air. The truth finally spoken aloud. The color drained from Margaret's face. "Or maybe I should share the bank records. The ones showing you've been embezzling from the Lawson Family Foundation for 3 years, paying off Derek Morrison to keep quiet about my true identity." Now Derek went pale too. "Or perhaps we should hear from Rosa herself." I turned toward the house. "Rosa, would you come out here, please?" Rosa stepped out of the house and walked across the garden. The crowd parted for her. Whispers followed her like a shadow or like the wind before a storm. She stepped onto the stage beside me. Her voice was steady, but I could see her hands trembling. "My name is Rosa Vasquez Miller," she said. "Elena Vasquez was my sister. Victoria is my niece." Gasps from the crowd. 34 years ago, my sister died giving birth to Victoria. I was 22 years old. I had promised Elena I would raise her baby if anything happened. Rosa held up a folder. This is the original custody agreement I was forced to sign. Under threat of arrest, under threat of deportation, under threat of having my life destroyed by a woman with money and lawyers and power. She pulled out papers one by one, holding each up for the crowd to see. These are letters from Margaret Lawson sent to me over the years, threatening me, warning me to stay away, telling me that if I ever contacted Victoria, she would have me arrested for stalking. The crowd was silent now, riveted. Not a single person moved, not a single person looked away. I have been searching for my niece for 34 years. I never stopped. I never gave up. Rosa's voice cracked with emotion. And now finally I can tell the truth. Victoria was stolen from her family. By that woman. She pointed at Margaret. Everything she told Victoria about being unwanted was a lie. Everything she told the world about graciously taking in her husband's illegitimate child was a lie. She stole a baby from a grieving family and then spent 3 decades punishing that baby for existing. Rosa turned to me, tears streaming down her face. You were always wanted, Victoria. Always loved. You were never alone. I was always here waiting for you to find your way home. I pulled her into a hug, held her tight while the whispers swirled around us, felt her tears on my shoulder mixing with my own. When I let go, I turned to face Margaret. She was standing alone now. The guests had moved away from her, unconsciously, instinctively putting distance between themselves and the woman they had just learned was a fraud. These were her people, her society, the world she had spent 60 years building, and they were all watching her fall. This is absurd, Margaret said, but her voice was shaking. She's lying. They're all lying. Victoria has always been jealous of this family, and now she's invented some fantasy to... I have your letters, Margaret. I held up the folder. In your own handwriting. If you attempt to contact Victoria again, I will have you arrested for stalking. She is my daughter now. That proves nothing. I have bank records showing payments to Derek Morrison, monthly, for 3 years. Payments that came from the family foundation. Loans, family loans. Embezzlement. I let the word hang in the air. The DA is very interested in reviewing those records. Margaret looked around at the faces surrounding her, at the judgment, the disgust, the morbid fascination. Her mask finally cracked. The perfect composure, the elegant dignity, all of it fell away. What remained was ugly, desperate, cornered. You ungrateful little bitch, she hissed. After everything I did for you. You did nothing for me. You took me from people who loved me and raised me in a house where I was never wanted. You let me spend 34 years thinking I was worthless when the truth is, you were the one who wasn't worthy of me. I stepped closer. You could have loved me. You could have chosen to see me as your daughter regardless of biology. You could have been a mother to me. Many women raise children who aren't biologically theirs and love them completely. You chose not to. I never wanted to be your mother. I know, I smiled. It wasn't kind. And now everyone else knows too. I turned to face the crowd. Margaret Lawson is not the woman you think she is. She's not a philanthropist. She's not a society matriarch. She's not a loving mother who made sacrifices for her family. I held up the folder one last time. She's a liar, a thief, and a woman who stole a baby from her family and spent 34 years making that baby believe she was worthless. I dropped the folder onto the table. The evidence is all there, for anyone who wants to see it. Lexi was crying, not pretty tears. Ugly, choking sobs. Her makeup running her perfect facade crumbling just like Margaret's. You ruined everything, she said. You ruined our whole family. Your family was ruined long before I did anything, Lexi. It was built on lies. I just exposed them. What am I supposed to do now I have nothing? You took everything. I took what you owed, nothing more. I looked at her. Really looked at her. At the woman who had been my sister, my tormentor, my nemesis. You could have been different, you know. You could have been a real sister to me. Instead, you spent 34 years making sure I knew I was less than you. I didn't know about any of this. Would it have mattered? I asked. If you had known I was only your half-sister, would you have treated me better? Or would you have found even more reasons to look down on me? Lexi didn't answer. She didn't have to. We both knew the truth. Goodbye, Lexi. I hope someday you learn to be a better person. For your children's sake, if not for your own. I turned away. I found Sophie in this crowd standing with Marcus. Her purple dress was bright against the green grass. Her eyes were wide, taking everything in. It had started with Sophie in this dress frozen and humiliated at Emma's party. It was ending with Sophie in this dress surrounded by people who loved her watching her mother fight back. I walked over, knelt down to her level. Mommy, is it over? Almost, baby, almost. Did you win? I looked at Margaret standing alone by the fence, at Lexi sobbing at a table, at the crowd of witnesses who would carry this story forever. Yes, sweetheart, we won. Sophie hugged me tight, her small arms around my neck, her warm breath against my shoulder. I'm glad. You were very brave, Mommy. Thank you, baby. That means everything to me. I faced Margaret one last time. She was standing at the edge of the garden near the gate, ready to flee, ready to run from the wreckage of her reputation. You chose this, I said. I gave you a chance to walk away, to end this quietly. You chose war instead. This isn't over. Her voice was a rasp. You think you've won, but this isn't over. For you? Yes. It is. I stepped back. The police have been notified about the embezzlement. The charity board has been informed. By Monday, you'll have nothing left. No foundation, no society friends, no reputation. You can't do this to me. I already have. I met her eyes. Goodbye, Margaret. I hope the next 34 years are as lonely as the first 34 were for me. I turned my back on her, walked toward my family, my real family. Marcus, Sophie, Rosa. As I reached them, Sophie slipped her hand into mine. Mommy. Yes, sweetheart. Can we go home now? I looked at the chaos behind us. The whispers, the stares, the wreckage of everything Margaret had built. Rosa put her arm around my shoulders. Marcus took my other hand. Yes, baby, let's go home. And we walked out together, leaving the past behind. That night, after the guests had gone and the caterers had cleaned up and the garden was quiet again, I sat on the back porch with Rosa. Sophie was asleep. Marcus was inside, fielding phone calls from journalists and lawyers and people who had been at the party. The story was already spreading. By tomorrow, everyone would know. How do you feel? Rosa asked. I thought about that question. Really thought about it. Empty? I said finally. But in a good way. Like something that was weighing me down is finally gone. That's the truth, Rosa said. Truth is heavy when you're hiding it, light when you let it out. I looked up at the stars. Wondered if Elena could see us. Wondered if she was proud. Do you think I did the right thing? I asked. Exposing her like that in front of everyone. I think you did what you had to do. Rosa took my hand. Margaret gave you no choice. She chose war. You just finished it. But was it justice or was it revenge? Rosa was quiet for a long moment. Maybe both, she said finally. Maybe sometimes they're the same thing. Maybe sometimes the only way to get justice is to fight for it yourself. I thought about Sophie's question from weeks ago. Are you a bully, Mommy? I thought about all the choices I had made, all the plans I had executed, all the pain I had caused. I don't want to be defined by this, I said. I don't want revenge to be my whole story. Then don't let it be. Rosa squeezed my hand. This chapter is over. What happens next is up to you. I looked at the crescent moon rising over the trees. Elena's moon. My mother's moon. What happens next? I repeated. I think what happens next is that I learn to live without the anger. Learn to be happy. Learn to be the mother Sophie deserves. That sounds like a good plan. And I learn to be part of a real family. Your family. The family I should have had all along. Rosa pulled me into a hug. You've always been part of it, mija. Even when you didn't know, even when we were apart, you were always one of us. I held on to her. Held on to this moment of peace. Tomorrow there would be lawyers and reporters and consequences. But tonight there was just this. Family. Truth. A new beginning. The reckoning was over. Now it was time to live. Sunday morning, the world was quiet. I woke up slowly, gradually, the way you do when there's nowhere to be and nothing to run from. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, golden and warm. Marcus was still asleep beside me, his breathing soft and steady, his hand resting on my hip the way it always did. For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. The battle was over. The secrets were out. Margaret had been exposed in front of everyone who mattered to her, her carefully constructed reputation crumbling like a sandcastle at high tide. And I was still standing. Still here. Still whole. I got out of bed carefully, not wanting to wake Marcus, and padded downstairs. The house was quiet. Sophie was still sleeping, exhausted from the emotions of yesterday. Rosa was already in the kitchen making coffee, her familiar presence a comfort I was still getting used to. How did you sleep? She asked. Better than I have in years. Maybe better than I have in my entire life. She smiled, that warm smile that reminded me so much of the woman in the photographs. Elena's smile. My mother's smile. Good. You deserve rest. You've been fighting for a long time. We sat together in this morning light, drinking coffee, not needing to fill the silence with words. This was what family felt like. Real family. The kind that doesn't need explanations or excuses. The kind that just is.
What happens now? Rosa asked after a while.
I don't know. I looked out the window at the backyard, still showing evidence of yesterday's party. I've spent so long planning, scheming, preparing for battle. I'm not sure what peace looks like. You'll figure it out. Rosa reached over and squeezed my hand. You've figured out everything else. This will be the easy part. I hoped she was right. Monday, Patricia called with news. Your investigation has been concluded, she explained. Not dropped, concluded. What does that mean? It means they reviewed every transaction you made over the past 2 years. Every debt purchase, every shell company, every paper trail Marcus helped you create. I held my breath. And clean. All of it. You bought debt on the secondary market through legitimate channels. You never used proprietary company information to identify targets. You found Derek's name in a public bankruptcy filing, not internal data. What about Lexi's accusations? Her complaint alleged you used inside information, but the timeline proves otherwise. Derek's debt was sold 3 times before you bought it. The mortgage had been transferred twice. Credit cards went through standard collection processes. Patricia paused. You were careful, Victoria. You were patient, and you were legal. So I'm clear. You're more than clear. HR determined Lexi's complaint was retaliatory, filed specifically to derail your life. She may face consequences for filing a false report. And my job, waiting for you, full reinstatement. Tom said to take another week if you need it, but the investigation is officially closed. I let out a breath I had been holding for weeks. What about the SEC? Withdrawn before they even opened a file. Patricia sounded almost amused. Turns out filing a false complaint with a federal agency isn't something lawyers recommend. Lexi's attorney told her to withdraw immediately or face potential perjury charges. So there's no federal investigation. There was never going to be one. The SEC gets thousands of complaints. They prioritize based on evidence and impact. A family dispute about legally purchased debt that goes to the bottom of the pile. Her lawyer knew that. He just hoped the threat would scare you into backing off. It almost worked. Almost, Patricia's voice softened. But you held your ground, and now you're clear. I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat in my kitchen and let myself feel the relief. It was over. It was really over. That evening, I asked Marcus about Derek. Indicted yesterday. Federal charges. For what exactly? Extortion for starters. The blackmail payments from Margaret. Marcus pulled up his notes on his laptop. But here's where it gets interesting. Some of those payments were wired across state lines. That's wire fraud. And the money came from the family foundation, which makes it receiving stolen property. Margaret, too. The DA is still reviewing, but Derek's cooperating, telling them everything in exchange for a lighter sentence. Marcus closed his laptop. Margaret may face embezzlement charges. The Family Foundation's board is conducting their own investigation, and the civil suits are just beginning. From who? Other donors. Board members who didn't know funds were being misappropriated. Charities that were supposed to receive grants that never materialized. He shook his head. It's going to be a long, ugly process. Years, probably. I thought about that. Margaret in court. Margaret facing charges. Margaret answering for 34 years of lies. Good, I said. Let it be ugly. Let it be long. Let her feel what it's like to be on the other side. And Lexi? What about her? She lost the house. Derek is facing prison. Her mother's reputation is destroyed. Marcus looked at me carefully. Do you feel any sympathy for her? I considered the question, really thought about it. A little, I admitted. She was raised by Margaret, taught to believe that cruelty was acceptable as long as you were on the winning side. In some ways, she's a victim too. But she's an adult. She made her own choices. She could have been kind to me. She could have treated Sophie with respect. She chose not to. I shook my head. I won't go after her anymore, but I won't feel sorry for her either. Tuesday, Rosa left. I drove her to the airport, both of us quiet during the ride. There was so much to say, and yet nothing that needed saying. We had found each other. That was enough for now. At the terminal, she turned to me with tears in her eyes. This isn't goodbye, she said. This is just the beginning of everything that should have happened 34 years ago. I know. You have a family now, Victoria. A real family. Me. My children Maria and Carlos Jr., your cousins who can't wait to meet you. My grandchildren who need to know their cousin Sophie. She squeezed my hands. Elena's family. Your family. The family Margaret tried to steal from you. I can't believe it took 34 years to find you. The important thing is that we found each other. Margaret tried everything to keep us apart. She failed. Rosa smiled through her tears. Elena would be so proud of you, fighting back, standing up, not letting them win. Do you really think so? I know so. She was a fighter too. That's where you get it from. Rosa pulled me into a hug, holding me tight. I'll call you tonight, and next month you're coming to Newark. I have 34 years of birthday presents to give you. 34 years of Christmas presents. 34 years of love all wrapped up and waiting. I laughed through my tears. I'll be there, I promise. Bring Sophie. Bring Marcus. Bring everyone you love. My house is big enough. My heart is big enough. She pulled back and held my face in her hands. You were never alone, Victoria. You just didn't know it. But now you know. And now we have the rest of our lives to make up for lost time. I watched her walk through the security line, waving until she disappeared. Then I sat in my car in the airport parking lot and cried. Happy tears. For once, happy tears. The kind of tears that come when something broken finally heals. Wednesday I went to see Margaret. I don't know what made me go. Maybe closure, maybe curiosity. Maybe some part of me that still hoped after everything that she would finally say the words I had waited my whole life to hear. Her new apartment was small, 1 bedroom in a building that catered to seniors, generic furniture, beige walls, a single window overlooking a parking lot. Nothing like the mansion she had lived in for 40 years with its marble floors and crystal chandeliers and gardens that required a full-time staff to maintain. How far she had fallen, and how quickly. She opened the door and stared at me. Her hair was uncombed, her clothes were wrinkled, she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Come to gloat? No, to say goodbye. She hesitated, studying my face for signs of deception. Then she stepped aside to let me in. The place smelled like loneliness, like defeat, like a life that had run out of lies. I spent my whole life trying to earn your love, I said. Trying to figure out what I did wrong, why you couldn't love me. Why I was never good enough, no matter how hard I tried, no matter what I achieved, no matter how much I gave. Margaret walked to the window, looked out at the parking lot below. Such a far cry from the gardens and fountains she was used to. I could have loved you, she said quietly, if you had been someone else's child. If you hadn't been the living proof of his betrayal. But every time I looked at you, I saw him, saw her, saw the woman he loved more than me. That wasn't my fault. No, it wasn't. She turned to face me. She looked older than I had ever seen her, smaller, defeated. The society queen reduced to an old woman in a 1-bedroom apartment. But it didn't matter. The anger was already there. I couldn't let it go. I didn't want to let it go. You could have. You chose not to. Yes, she nodded slowly. I chose not to. I chose to punish you for sins you didn't commit. I chose cruelty over kindness, resentment over love, and now I'm paying for it. We stood there in silence. 34 years of pain between us. 34 years of cruelty and loneliness and words that could never be taken back. I'm not going to apologize, Margaret said finally. I did what I thought was right at the time. I protected my family, my real family, by destroying mine, by doing what I had to do. I walked toward the door. There was nothing more to say. Nothing that would change what had happened. Nothing that would undo 3 decades of damage. I paused at the threshold. I hope you find peace, Margaret. Somehow, eventually. I hope you find something that fills the emptiness you created in your own heart. And if I don't, then you'll die alone, having never known what it felt like to be loved for who you are, instead of who you pretended to be. You'll die knowing that the only family you have left is the one you pushed away. Her face crumpled just for a moment. Then the mask came back. Goodbye, Victoria. Goodbye, Margaret. I closed the door behind me, and I never looked back. Thursday afternoon, Sophie found me in the backyard. I was sitting on the old wooden bench watching the clouds drift by. The same bench where I had sat during my darkest nights, wondering if I was doing the right thing. Wondering if I was becoming a monster. Mommy? Yes, sweetheart. Remember when I asked if you were a bully? My stomach tightened. That question had haunted me for weeks. I remember. I've been thinking about it. Sophie sat down next to me, her expression serious. More serious than any 7-year-old should be. I don't think you're a bully. I think you're like the heroes in stories. The ones who fight back when people are mean. Fighting back can look like bullying sometimes. Maybe. Sophie considered this. But bullies hurt people for fun. You weren't having fun. You were sad the whole time, and you only hurt people who hurt you first. 7 years old? So much wisdom in such a small person. I hope you're right, sweetheart. I know I'm right. She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. And you know what else? What? You stopped when it was over. Bullies don't stop. They keep going and going because they like it. But you stopped. That means you're not a bully. I put my arm around her, held her close. This child who had started everything. This child who had made me brave enough to fight back. When did you get so smart? I learned from watching you. We sat there together watching the clouds drift by, mother and daughter, finally at peace. 1 month later, life had settled into something like normal. Better than normal, actually. Better than it had ever been. I went back to work. Tom welcomed me with a handshake and a quiet apology for everything I had been put through. The investigation was closed. My reputation was intact. If anything, people respected me more for standing up to a family that had tried to destroy me. You handled it with grace, Tom said during our first meeting back. A lot of people would have crumbled under that kind of pressure. I had good support. You had good instincts, and you were careful. That matters in this business. Marcus and I were stronger than ever. The crisis had brought us closer, forced us to communicate in ways we hadn't before. We talked more now, shared more. He knew all my secrets, every dark corner of my heart, and he loved me anyway. Maybe because of it. I'm proud of you, he told me one night lying in bed in the darkness, for seeing it through, for not giving up. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. He pulled me close. But I'm glad you didn't have to. Sophie was thriving. The bullying had stopped completely. The children who had tormented her were now keeping their distance, their parents too embarrassed by their connection to the scandal to encourage any further contact. She had made new friends, real friends who didn't care about her family drama. She laughed more, worried less. She was just a kid again, the way she should be. One afternoon I watched her playing in the backyard with 2 girls from her class. They were making flower crowns and giggling about something I couldn't hear. Normal kid stuff. Happy kid stuff. This was what I had fought for. Not revenge, not destruction. This, her happiness, her freedom, her chance to grow up without the weight of my family's dysfunction crushing her. And Rosa. Rosa called every few days. Sent photos of Elena, of their childhood, of the life I might have had. She was planning a big family gathering for Thanksgiving. All the cousins, all the aunts and uncles, everyone who shared our blood. For the first time in my life, I had an extended family. People who looked like me, who shared my history, who had wanted me from the beginning. The revenge had been satisfying. I wouldn't pretend otherwise. Lexi had lost everything. The house was sold at auction. The cars were repossessed. The reputation she had spent her whole life building was in ruins. Derek was awaiting trial, facing years in prison. Their marriage was officially over. Lexi had moved into a small apartment across town, working as a real estate agent. Now her society friends having abandoned her as quickly as they had abandoned Margaret. I saw her once in a grocery store. She looked up and our eyes met. For a moment I thought she might say something. Apologize maybe, or attack me again. But she just turned and walked away, and so did I. Margaret had been forced to resign from every board, every charity, every social organization that had once defined her existence. The embezzlement investigation was ongoing. The civil suits were multiplying. She spent her days alone in that small apartment abandoned by the society that had worshipped her for 60 years. I heard she didn't have any visitors, not even Lexi. But the revenge wasn't the most important thing. I knew that now. That night I read Elena's letter one more time. I kept it in a frame now on my nightstand. A reminder, a touchstone. The words of a mother I had never met but who had loved me completely. My darling child, she wrote. You were wanted. From the very first moment I knew you existed, you were wanted. You were not a mistake. You were not an accident. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I traced the words with my finger. For 34 years I had believed I was unlovable. That there was something fundamentally wrong with me. That I was a burden, a mistake, a problem to be tolerated rather than a person to be loved. Margaret had made me believe that. Had spent 3 decades reinforcing it every day, with her coldness, her dismissals, her 1,000 small cruelties that had carved themselves into my soul. But she was wrong. I was loved, I had always been loved. By a mother who died to give me life, by an aunt who never stopped searching, by a husband who stood by me through everything, by a daughter who saw me clearly even when I couldn't see myself. Sophie appeared in my doorway, her hair still damp from her bath, wearing her favorite pajamas. "Mommy, will you tuck me in?" "Of course, baby." I followed her to her room, pulled the covers up to her chin, brushed the hair from her face. "Mommy?" "Yes." "I'm glad you're my mom. I'm glad you're my daughter." She smiled. That beautiful, innocent smile that made everything worth it. Everything I had done, everything I had fought for. It was all for her, for this moment, for this life we had finally built. "I love you, Mommy, to the moon and back." The words hit me like a wave. Our special phrase. The one I had taught her when she was a baby. The same words I now knew Elena had written in her letters, her way of expressing a love too big for ordinary words. "I love you too, baby, to the moon and back." And around again. I felt the tears spring to my eyes. "And around again, forever and ever." She giggled. "That's a lot of loving." "It is." I kissed her forehead. "But you deserve every bit of it." I turned off the light and walked to the door. Paused to look back at her, this perfect child, this gift I had almost been too broken to receive. "Good night, sweetheart." "Good night, Mommy." I closed the door softly and stood in the hallway for a moment. The house was quiet. Marcus was reading in bed. The night was peaceful. For the first time in 34 years, I felt whole. I walked back to my bedroom and picked up Elena's letter one more time. "You are loved, you are enough, just as you are." I finally believed it. Not because Margaret had been defeated, not because the revenge was complete, not because the world had finally seen the truth. I believed it because I had learned to love myself. Despite everything. Because of everything. The little girl who had been invisible, who had been dismissed, who had been made to feel worthless, she was still inside me. She would always be inside me. But she wasn't alone anymore. She was loved. She had always been loved. And that was enough. I put down the letter and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, Elena was watching. I believed that now. I had to believe it. "Thank you," I whispered into the darkness. "For loving me. For fighting for me. For giving me life." The stars twinkled back. Silent, eternal, beautiful. I climbed into bed beside Marcus. He mumbled something and pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me automatically even in sleep. "Everything okay?" he asked sleepily. "Everything's perfect." "Good." He kissed my shoulder. "I love you, you know." "I know, I love you too." Within minutes, his breathing had deepened again, returning to sleep. But I stayed awake a little longer, listening to the quiet of the house, feeling the warmth of his body beside me. I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the anger, the years of feeling invisible and worthless. The plan that had consumed me for 2 years. The battles, the victories, the losses. And now finally the peace. It hadn't come the way I expected. Not through revenge, though revenge had played its part. Not through Margaret's downfall, though that had been necessary. It had come from something simpler, something more profound. It had come from finally believing that I was worthy of love. Not because of what I had done. Not because of what I had achieved. Not because I had destroyed my enemies or vindicated myself in the eyes of the world, but simply because I existed. Because Elena had wanted me. Because Rosa had searched for me. Because Marcus had chosen me. Because Sophie needed me. Because I was enough, just as I am. The crescent moon necklace glinted on my nightstand, catching the light from the window. Elena's gift. My mother's love reaching across 34 years and beyond death itself. I closed my eyes and smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new opportunities to build the life I had always deserved. But tonight I was at peace, and for the first time in 34 years that was enough.